Isn't it about time for somebody's favorite radio program?
Yeah.
97.3 ESPN presents The Sports Bash with Mike Gill.
When I'm driving, I got a guy on the radio who talks to me. I can't see him, but he talks to me.
Now, live from inside the Ocean Casino Resort Studio, here's Mike Gill.
We are live on a Wednesday edition of the Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, streaming live video on the X platform at 973 ESPN. Use the hashtag SBLive. What's up, everybody? I'm the host, Mike Gill. Josh Hennings producing today's show. You out there, we got live Phillies in action today. It looks like they're down 1-0 in the third against the Twins. Phils win last night. An old school pitching duel last night. Good to see Zach Wheeler last night look like Zach Wheeler. That was one takeaway from the game. Hey, you know, it's an old school pitching matchup. Some nights you just don't have it. Sometimes the offense just doesn't bring it. But it's great to have a guy like Wheeler to be able to hammer it down, shut the door. There was a couple things in the game last night that I thought that really stood out, and I think we can dive into a little bit as we open up today's show. Eagles at camp today. Nick Sirianni, Howie Roseman, and more speaking today for the Philadelphia Eagles, who, you know, there's a lot of stuff happening at the Eagles camp already. You know, injuries. Cooper DeJean is already out for at least 3 weeks. Not good news, right? Cooper DeJean out at least 3 weeks. He's got what is being described as a hamstring injury when he was, quote, caught in an awkward position during offseason. The mind wonders on that one, right? You were caught in an awkward position. What were you doing that made you in such an awkward position? But Cooper DeJean caught in an awkward position. Was he robbing a bank? Was he surfing? I mean, what was he doing? But he is out. They're saying 3 weeks. They say it's an unrelated to any prior injury. They're confident that he will be back and ready to go for the season. But John McMullen is back. He's going to join me at 3 o'clock today with a recap of day one at Eagles camp. And, you know, one thing with Cooper, he's a rookie. You guys know that. But how much does missing 3 weeks of training camp now affect what he might be this season? That's really the question that enters my mind. Here's a guy that I don't know if they really knew what they wanted to do with him yet. Do they want to play him at slot corner? Do they want to play him at regular corner? Do they want to play him at safety? Now, they have to wait 3 weeks to kind of figure that out. So we're going to get into that with John coming up at 3 o'clock today. Football at 4. Mosher will join us. So I got a lot of Eagles thoughts on my mind, but I do want to start with the Phillies, who, by the way, are 0 for 8 with runners in scoring position today. They have really struggled for Aaron Nola, who's pitching today. But let's quickly go to last night's game, because there are a couple things in last night's game that I think stand out that we need to bring back. Number one, Castellanos with the big hit last night. I mean, I've been tough on Castellanos, but I got to give him a little just due with the big, it was a double last night, right? He doubled home, 3-run ninth inning. He hits the double. It breaks a scoreless tie, and it beats the Twins 3-0 last night. But, you know, Castellanos has kind of stepped it up here a little bit. I got to give him a little bit of cred. That, remember we talked about, well, it was 1-0 when he hit that double, by the way, last night. Castellanos what's Castellanos hitting now? What's his batting average up to? I remember we asked the question kind of hypothetically, can Castellanos get himself to like 240 or 245? Castellanos is up to 237, which isn't great, but he's creeping towards the 245. There's a couple other things in the game last night. Schwarber, by the way, down to 238. His batting average has dropped almost 20 points, and he's been slumping a bit. I don't remember the last big Schwarber hit here.
Nick Castellanos, since June 1st, has played 43 games. He has a .272 batting average, a .491 slug with 7 homers and 28 RBI.
Yeah, I can live with that version of Castellanos. And you know what I like about that version of Castellanos? It isn't like overly inflated. He's not hitting .472. It's .272, which is steady Eddie, you know? That's fine. I don't know that I trust him. Still, I'm not going to sit here and say I trust the guy. But those numbers are livable.
I think the big number in here is he has 40 strikeouts in 43 games. That means he's averaging less than 1 strikeout a game during this stretch, which I thought was a huge problem for him early in the year. Those looping swings where he would strike out and look horrible.
Terrible. His swing is so long at times. A couple things in the game last night. The one thing I've kind of been pointing out in my mind, you know, since the All-Star break, Kyle Schwarber's been really kind of struggling, slumping a bit here. Alec Boehm has kind of hit a little bit of an RBI slump, if you will. He's still 293. I think he just doubled a little while ago in this game today. So it's just that he hasn't been driving runs in, and I don't know if that's a byproduct of Schwarber hasn't been on base as much or whatever you want to do. Real Muto being back in the lineup, they plugged him into that 5 hole. I wasn't here when he came back, but his first game back, I was wondering where they were going to hit him. I kind of thought number 5, and that's where they put him. Brandon Marsh, it's interesting because he's hitting in the 6th spot. Now, today I have not seen the full lineup today. Actually, we just turned the game on about 15 minutes ago in the studio. I forgot it was a 1:10 start today. So I have not seen the full lineup yet. But Marsh hitting in the 6 hole, him and Stott flip-flopped. Last night, they hit Marsh 6 and Stott 8, which they've been hitting Stott 6 and Marsh 8. And they flip-flopped those two. You got Castellanos hitting 7, and then Rojas was in the 9 hole last night. He actually had to hit Rojas. And then he got picked off. Rojas got a hit, and then he got picked off. But the observation I had was a couple things. One, Schwarber kind of slowing down a bit. Boehm hasn't had an RBI in a little bit. They flip-flop Marsh and Stott. Castellanos has been going pretty good. Wheeler last night, 7 innings, 3 hits, 7 strikeouts. That is positive for a couple reasons. One, Wheeler, remember, had the back situation, and he got yanked from his last start a little early. Then he didn't pitch in the All-Star game. So him to come out after the All-Star break, fire a heater up there, and get himself through 7, good to see. Jeff Hoffman last night, little command issues, couple of walks in the game. Soto, 1 batter, 1 walk. He was all over the place last night. I think he threw 10 pitches and like 1 strike. It was terrible. And Matt Strahm. You know, Strahm, it's such a positive to see that he comes right out of the gate after the All-Star break. After we were talking about this yesterday, right? Can Matt Strahm be the same pitcher in the second half that he was in the first half? Well, by golly, he came out and got the save. So he elevated himself in his first game after the All-Star break. By the way, the Phillies lineup is out today, and it's brought to you by our friends at Clark's Moving and Storage. It's Schwarber, Turner, Harper, Boehm, Marsh, Castellanos, Stott. Stubbs is catching today, and Rojas is in center. So no Real Muto, which has Marsh in the 5 hole, and Castellanos hitting 6, Stott 7, and Garrett Stubbs 8. So far, Castellanos has doubled, and so has Boehm. They are the 2 Phillies, and Turner has a hit today as well. It's Nola on the mound, 3 innings, 2 strikeouts. I think he gave up a home run. If I remember the run that Minnesota scored, I'm pretty sure it was a home run to give them a 1-0 lead. So, yeah, Phil's, look, it's a long season. We know that. But 2 things. Wheeler being the pitcher that he was last night is exactly what you needed. That's the only thing you needed to take from last night's game, right? That's the only takeaway that you really need from last night's game was what Zach Wheeler was I getting. If you had any concerns that Wheeler was not going to be the same guy, they got kind of put to rest last night. And look, Wheeler has really, I mean, I talked about this a while back, but when you signed Zach Wheeler, you never thought you were getting a Cy Young guy. Current Cy Young odds have Chris Sale as the favorite. At most betting outlets, DraftKings plus 140, FanDuel plus 145, ESPN Bet. Chris Sale is the favorite pretty much everywhere. And Wheeler is number 2 at every sports book. He is the number 2 guy. Now, if you were taking a look at the Cy Young favorite list, you got Sale, you got Wheeler, and then you got Skeens. And then after that, there's a complete drop-off. It goes to Glasnow, Logan Webb, and Ranger Suarez. Now, for Ranger Suarez to even be in the conversation after his last couple starts tells you how big of a drop-off there really is. Sale, Wheeler, or Skeens? If I told you right now, you can bet on one.
I'm going Wheeler because I think of those three, he has the resume of a guy who typically can maintain his production. I haven't seen Skeens do it for an entire year.
Well, you saw him last night go 9.
And he lost.
He lost, but he did go 9 last night. He lost, but he was 8 1/3. He got into the 9th inning last night through had 8 strikeouts, and it's his first big league loss. 8 strikeouts. He gave up the home run. That was it.
Sale has had a weird year because he has a couple of starts. I know he had the one game where he allowed 5 runs. The other game he allowed 8 runs. So Sale is the kind of guy, like, he gets like 5 starts in a row, like, oh my goodness, this guy's amazing. And then that 6th start, he just is like implodes.
Yeah. Well, and Sale is going to be interesting. Are they going to value the standings? If Wheeler and Sale's numbers are kind of close, which they kind of are right now, let's compare right now, bring up Sale, and I'll take a look at Wheeler here. I'm kind of intrigued by this because the Phillies are entering today's game. You know, they are comfortably, of course, ahead by 9 games on Atlanta in the National League East. So a 9-game cushion in the East. And if you're looking at the 2 leaders in the clubhouse for Cy Young, does that 9-game cushion mean anything if you're voting for Cy Young? You would say, well, why would it? You know, they only pitch on their individual day. Zach Wheeler this year in 20 starts. He's got 15 quality starts of his 20. He's 10-4. His ERA is 2.55 with a whip of 0.98. If you like the WAR stat, he's 3.4, 123 innings, 133 strikeouts. So that's the resume for Zach Wheeler for this year's Cy Young Award. He is number 2 currently in that race. What do we got for Sale?
So Sale is actually the National League leader in wins right now with 13, but he only has 18 starts. That's 2 less starts than Zach. He's got the 2.70 ERA.
2.70 is Wheeler has him there. Wheeler has less wins.
Correct.
And he has a lower ERA.
And 2 more starts as Wheeler.
Mm-hmm.
Also, Sale has a 0.955 whip.
So they're about the same, 0.98 for Wheeler.
Right. And then, you know, Sale has the higher strikeout number. Higher strikeouts, 9 per 9 innings, 11.5. I believe Wheeler's around, like, what, 9?
9.7. Yep.
Yeah.
So they're that's my point, is that they're very comparable. So you're watching last night Wheeler really put himself back into the top end of the Cy Young list. Like, if he had come out and kind of bombed a little bit, Sale maybe pulls away a bit, but Wheeler's performance last night puts him right back in the mix for that award, which, you know, listen, would you like to see Wheeler win the award? Of course you would, but it doesn't really matter if he does or not. No, but I think what it shows is, I was thinking about this last night because the text message we got yesterday from one of the listeners yesterday.
You mean Cole from LBI?
LBI Cole, right. How do I forget Cole from LBI? He's one of the great text messengers that we get. 609-403-0973. His text message had me thinking last night because there is a report out there. I don't know if you saw this report. It's over at 973ESPN.com. If you have the free mobile app, you got it sent right to your phone. And the report suggests that the Phillies right now have their eye on 2 starting pitchers, that they have discussed 2 starting pitchers, which I got to be honest, does surprise me a little bit. The 2 pitchers are Garrett Crochet of the White Sox and Jack Flaherty of Detroit. Now, Flaherty is like a mercenary, right? He's the guy last year. He got traded from St. Louis to Baltimore when Baltimore needed a pitcher. And quite frankly, meh on that move last year. Now, he's in Detroit this year. He got a big 1-year, like $15 million deal in the offseason. And he's had a good year, Flaherty. He really has. But he kind of is meh to me. Crochet is 6-6 with a 3.02 ERA, a 0.95 WHIP. He's got 150 strikeouts in 107 innings this year in 20 starts. Now, mind you, he's 6-6. The White Sox have about 20 wins, and he's got 6 of them.
Right. And also, he is a guy that for months has been rumored to be a heavy target of the Dodgers.
By the way, Chicago has 27 wins. He has 6 of the 27. Yeah, well, the Dodgers need pitching bad.
Yeah, the Dodgers need it probably worse than anybody.
So here's my question, though, okay? As that text message came in yesterday, talking about the Phillies needing a number 2 because, a lot of people just aren't sold on Nola. But here, This is why this whole conversation, it's like a full circle thing here, like a Seinfeld episode. I'm bringing it back to the beginning. The fact that Wheeler is number 2 in the Cy Young and Skeens is number 3, okay? And then Ranger Suarez is there. If you're questioning the Phillies starting pitching, you're just not looking at the landscape of the league. There's no starting pitching in this league. Those are your favorites for the Cy Young. Glasnow, Webb, Suarez. There's a good chance Webb's not in the playoffs.
Correct.
Glasnow's hurt right now.
As always.
Skeens.
He's a rookie.
Well, my point on Skeens was more, it's not a guarantee that he's in the playoffs either, although Pittsburgh's a game and a half out. So of those guys in the Cy Young race, Sale will be a playoff pitcher. Wheeler will be a playoff pitcher. Skeens, no guarantee. Glasnow's hurt. Webb, I would say most likely will not be in the playoffs.
I would assume, yeah. I mean, the way things are looking, it's not looking good. That's to say the least.
Yeah, I mean, San Francisco right now is,
I think they're 4 or 5 games out?
Yeah, they're back. They're 5 out now. So I would imagine he's not in the playoffs. And then Suarez is next at plus 4,000. So, yes, would you like a better pitcher than Nola? Sure. Okay, I'll play along. Yeah, I'll get a better pitcher than Nola. But my point is, who has any pitching? The Phillies have Wheeler, Nola, Suarez, the hot pitchers in the side. When I saw the Cy Young list, I'm like, my God, there's just such a lack of pitching depth in the National League right now.
And that's why I mentioned to you when Cole brought up yesterday, I was like, listen, if the Rangers are turning into sellers, would you consider a Max Scherzer? Well, sure, you consider it, but then how does he fit in? So I ask you, Mike, does the report of the Phillies' potential interest in a starter give you a signal that maybe they are concerned about Suarez or they are concerned about Walker and Turnbull for the rest of the year?
It's an interesting question because the report from John Morosi says the Phillies are hopeful that Taijuan Walker will return to their rotation in August.
Hopeful.
And we know that Spencer Turnbull is out with the lat strain. He's been out for a while. He's expected back early to mid-August. So that's like 2 weeks to 3 weeks from now, maybe 4 weeks from now. You got Tyler Phillips holding down the number 5 spot. So your question is interesting. All right, if I'm going out and getting Garrett Crochet, he's not a back end of the rotation.
No.
Is he the guy that's, I don't know, is he number 2 on this team? Is he going to usurp Nola? See, that's where I have a weird one for me.
Yeah.
Are you going to go Wheeler, Crochet, Nola, Suarez, and Christopher Sanchez as your 5? But then Christopher Sanchez is essentially out of the playoff rotation.
Which doesn't seem like the right thing to do because of the fact that he has had a good year. And half the reason why you even thought of Nola's potential 3 is because Suarez, the last couple of years in the postseason, has been a clutch pitcher. Crochet has never been in the postseason, so you have no idea what would happen when you get to the postseason with him.
Yeah, that name, why I like him, doesn't have a lot of experience. Obviously no playoff performance. And what are you giving up to get a player of that magnitude?
Probably more than you should, because there's going to be a bidding war. It goes back to the conversation we had the last time you were here, Mike, which is, Buster Olney on the Baseball Tonight podcast said there's a lot of desperate teams out there. And, he listed, the Braves and the Dodgers and the Twins, who they're playing right now, right? They're really showing the home run from earlier that Wallner hit off Nola. But, the Twins are a team that's also in the playoff. There's a lot of playoff teams that are trying to upgrade their teams. if you're the Phillies, you're one of a group of many.
Now, Jack Flaherty's interesting. 17 starts, 3.13 ERA, 9.96 WHIP. He's having a tremendous year. 100 innings pitched, 127 strikeouts. I mean, Flaherty, I think, is over his skis right now.
He's a flamethrower. He's all. You know, what's the line from Robert Saleh? You know, no all gas, no brakes.
Well, he got traded last year to Baltimore, right?
Yes.
And Baltimore did not get a great ROI there. He was 1-3 with a 6.75 ERA after that trade. By the way, you know, he was in St. Louis before that, 7-6 with a 4.43 ERA. The year before that, you know, he just has been very, very inconsistent.
He's
so
always
is he
been
a guy
inconsistent.
at 28 years old, though, is now finally starting to kind of pull it in?
I mean, maybe he is a guy that just has been learning, getting better year after year. The question, though, is...
Well, he pitched in the playoffs last year for Baltimore. They trade for Flaherty last year because Baltimore had no pitching. They had this great offense, and they needed a guy at the top of the rotation. They go get Flaherty, and everyone's like, meh. Well, he goes 1-3 with a 6.75 ERA in the regular season, and then he pitches a postseason game and a 4.50 ERA and a 2.50 WHIP. He lasted 2 innings. He walked 3 guys.
Not good.
To me, Flaherty, I know he's having a really good year.
He's too boomer bust.
But, okay, so is he an upgraded version of what you hoped to get with Michael Lorenzen last year? I don't know.
I don't know if he's much better than Lorenzen, honestly. In long term, I mean.
But that's why the report just, to me, has me scratching my head.
Well, it goes back to the question I asked you yesterday, Mike, here on the Sports Bash. I said, do the Phillies potentially consider going 6-man rotation in August like they did last year? And if part of the conversation is we are going to do that, is part of this, hey, we're looking to see who's out there to be a part of that 6-man rotation like Lorenzen was.
I'll ask Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City, pressofac.com. That's next. This is the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. I'm Mike Gill. Don't forget, Happy Hour Friday. We are live at Giuliano's. Yes, that is happening this Friday. We're going to be there this Friday, Happy Hour Friday, celebrating 15 years of the Sports Bash. Everybody out there listening, you're invited, and everybody has a chance to win tickets to see Smashing Pumpkins and Green Day at Citizens Bank Park. August the 9th is that show. We're going to be giving away those tickets every hour at Giuliano's. So stop out. We're going to just pull names. We'll have other great prizes celebrating 15 years of the Sports Bash. You're invited. $3.50 Bud Light Drafts, $4 neutral vodka seltzers, and whatever else you want. You ever been to Giuliano's? It's got a great tap list there. They got nice little packaged goods. Their food's outstanding, by the way. Really good wings at Giuliano's. So stop on out this Friday, Happy Hour Friday, live on the road at Giuliano's to celebrate 15 years of the show here on 97.3 ESPN. When we come back, Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City. 2 starting pitchers' names have been reported for the Phillies to have some discussions about. Do they make sense to him? And is that their biggest need now? That's next.
This is the story of the one. As head of maintenance at a concert hall, he knows the show must always go on. That's why he works behind the scenes, ensuring every light is working, the HVAC is humming, and his facility shines. With Grainger's supplies and solutions for every challenge he faces, plus 24/7 customer support, his venue never misses a beat. Call quickgrainger.com or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Mike Gill.
Do I have everybody's attention now?
On 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
2:30, and as we come back from the break, touching home, Trey Turner ties it up for the Phillies 1-1 against the Twins. Phil's trying to win that series after losing game 1. And, of course, we'll keep you up to date right here on the Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, streaming live video on the X platform at Mike Gill Show. Trey Turner with the home run. Very good pitching again from Aaron Nola. Last night, really good pitching from Zach Wheeler. But is it starting pitching that the Phillies might need? A report yesterday suggesting from John Morosi the Phillies are looking at rotation upgrades. Garrett Crochet and Jack Flaherty are among the options that the Phillies have discussed. Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City, pressofac.com, is starting pitching, Michael, at the top of your wish list if you're Dave Dombrowski. Are you surprised to hear that?
Yeah, I am surprised. I mean, I believe in the theory that you can never have too much starting pitching, however, but starting pitching would not be at the top of my wish list for the Philadelphia Phillies. And it gets me thinking that maybe they're a little bit more worried about Ranger Suarez than they're letting on if they are thinking about going to get a starting pitcher in the next 3 or 4 days.
Right. I was going to say, Garrett Crochet's a guy that if you get him, right, you would imagine he's a guy that would pitch a playoff game for you, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And realistically, you only need 4 starters in the playoffs, if that. So that would mean that, either Ranger or Christopher Sanchez, who was an all-star this season, both all-stars, would not be pitching, making a start in the postseason. So, yeah, I would find it interesting if the Phillies did go and get a starting pitcher. Like I said, I'm in the camp. You can never have too many starters. But if they do go get one, it raises some questions. And question number one would be, to me, maybe they're a little bit more concerned about Ranger Suarez than they're letting on right now.
Right, because, you imagine that Wheeler and Nola are going to pitch a playoff game no matter what. But the whole, Suarez, he has performed well in the playoffs. It's not like it's not like this guy's having a great regular season and then you don't know about playoff performance. His playoff performance has been there. It's been the regular season where you haven't really had the performance. Now you're getting the regular season performance. It's starting to slow down a bit, but you wouldn't have questions about Suarez in the playoffs, would you?
No, not at all. The only thing I could think of is, he is versatile, and in 2022 they did use him in that role. He started games in the playoffs. He closed out Game 5 of the National League Championship Series against the San Diego Padres. So not only does he have playoff experience, he has it in a variety of roles, right? But still, I would think they'd be pretty sound with Wheeler, Nola, Suarez, and Sanchez going into the playoffs. Like I said, if they get another starter, hey, it just, who's the odd man out would be the first question being asked.
Right. Well, and then the other question, I guess, is if you added another starting pitcher, does that also speak that they don't trust Christopher Sanchez in a playoff game?
Possibly, but he has pitched well this season, and it's a chicken with an egg thing. You can't trust him because he hasn't had past results. You can't have past results unless you trust him, right? So, again, I think starting pitching is one of their strengths. To me, I would not be looking for a starting pitcher if I was them. I think they desperately, and with every day as we march towards the trade deadline here, including today, I think they desperately need an outfield bat, and I think they need some bullpen help before they even think about starting pitching.
Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City, pressofac.com. Phil's in action today. It's 1-1. A home run from Trey Turner has just tied it up. You talk about the lineup here. They've been struggling offensively, that we know, but they go through the ups and downs of a season. But what do you make, Mike, of all the platoons that we seem to be seeing? Marsh, and now it looks like almost Stott.
Yeah, it's basically performance-based. I can't argue with Marsh not hitting against left-handed hitters. I think he's 7 for 50 or something like that about him. And when I just said a second ago, go get an outfield bat, I'm starting to get concerned about Marsh against right-handers. He just, that elbow injury, not hitting with the same power that he did early in the season, he hasn't really gotten on track. Pache hasn't really gotten on track. I don't think anybody wants to really trust Weston Wilson in a playoff series. And to me, I think Bryson Stott has been the biggest disappointment of the Philadelphia Phillies season. He's kind of been able to fly under the radar a little bit as we've sort of focused on the struggles of other players like Castellanos and everything else. But Bryson Stott has taken a major step backwards the first part of this season. And to me, he's been the number one disappointment. And it's hard pressed to say put him out there against lefties. He's having a problem hitting righties right now.
Where do you rank Alvarado in terms of concern?
Concerned. Again, don't trust him right now. Now, again, bullpen guys are always, one outing away from getting on a hot streak, right? So it can easily turn right now. But I don't feel great about him coming in the 8th or 9th inning to close out a game right now. And I do think that if they were to get a bullpen arm, they would be a better bullpen if they were able to slot Alvarado down, put him in the 6th and 7th inning where he could take down a pocket of lefties. Even though he struggled this season out of the pen, he has been very, very, very good against left-handers. I don't trust him in the 8th or 9th inning where he'd have to come in and get lefties and righties out. But, boy, if you could get a bullpen guy with closing experience and slot that guy towards the back end and push Alvarado up to the 6th or 7th where he could come in and take down some tough lefties, I think that might be the role for him going forward.
Yeah, we're talking with Mike McGarry. Phil's in action. Did not play well against Oakland before the break. Did not play well in Pittsburgh after the break. Then lost the game against Minnesota. You thought last night was a big one for them.
Yeah, I think they've got to start getting back on track and winning series here. I think this is an interesting game today. If they lose today, they've dropped 3 straight series, right? A's, Pirates, and Twins, and you've got the Guardians and the Yankees coming to town. Now, nobody's pushing the panic button here. This team is going to make the playoffs. They're still 9.5 up, in part because I just don't think the Atlanta Braves are capable of making a run this year during the regular season. I think they're just simply too beat up, too many injuries. But we would all like to see the Phillies sort of peaking as they go into October and playing better in August and September and going into the playoffs on the upswing. What we don't want to see is look back and say, hey, the Phillies really played their best ball in April and May, and I think they've got to start winning some of these games and winning some of these series. Again, I'm not concerned pushing any panic buttons, but my eyebrow would be raised if they would lose today to the Twins and would have dropped 3 series in a row, and you have the Guardians who are kind of underrated, and you got a possible World Series preview this weekend coming to town this weekend. So, again, not concerned, but just maybe saying, if they drop today's game a little bit.
All right, we talked about some concerns. Alvarado was in there. Mason Miller, we saw him with Oakland, would be a shutdown guy at the back end of the rotation, that we know. But if you have to give away a top-level guy, you have him listed on your list today over at PressOfAtlanticCity.com. 10 players the Phillies should consider. Would you give away a Painter to get a Miller?
Yeah, absolutely. With the club control you have for Painter, with Miller rather, absolutely. And I think you're in a position to win the World Series. You've got to do everything you can to win the World Series this year. And I think Mason Miller felt great in the back end of that bullpen. I know he had the elbow problems last year. I know he had the, UCL issues. There are some people out there that say Tommy John, he throws 104. It's only a matter of time. He's 25, 26 years old. But hey, if I can go get him and solidify the back of the bullpen, I think he's exactly what you need. And Mike, the other thing, you look at the other sort of closers that are out there, do we really feel great about Kyle Finnegan coming into a game in the 8th or 9th inning of a National League Division Series or a championship series? Do we really feel good about a lot of the other relievers that are out there? I think Mason Miller is head and shoulders above everybody else who's available out there. I think he might be the best player available out there for a trade. If you have to give up prospects, go get him and go win the World Series this year.
Do you feel the same way about anybody else on that list, that you would be willing to give up a Painter, an Aiden Miller, a Crawford to get any of the 10 guys you listed?
Not really. Not really. I don't think the other guys are great fits, and I think the other guys, you can, if you don't go get a Brent Rooker, maybe you can get a Joe Adell, maybe you can get a Miguel Andujar, maybe you get a Mark Canhana. maybe you can get those guys without giving up the prospects. I don't think the separation is the same between the other players, where I think Mason Miller is head and shoulders above the other relievers based on that list. And plus, you look at the club control that you have over them. It's not like you're just getting them for this year. You're also going to have them the next couple of years. So I think he fits in great here, and I think the gap in his talent between him and the next reliever is worth giving up prospects for.
The one thing, too, is you got the center field thing. Are you keeping Rojas in center, or is that something that you're still, trying to figure out between now and Tuesday?
Yeah, if I can go get a corner outfielder, I'm going to keep Rojas in center and platoon him with Marsh, and then I'm going to, in the 6th or 7th inning, if the Phillies are up, then I'm going to switch Marsh over to left field and put Rojas in there defensively. I think the Phillies' best roster and the Phillies' best playoff roster is with Rojas on the team and playing center field in key defensive innings, right? I think he's capable of making catches that other guys on the team aren't capable of, and I think one of those catches or two of those catches could win you a World Series. So he's got the capability of winning games with his glove. That's why I like him on the roster. Again, ideal situation for me, go get that right-handed bat, put him in left field, platoon in center field with Marsh and Rojas, and then if the Phillies are up in the 7th or 8th inning, swish Marsh over to left, put Rojas in for defense if he's not already in the game. I think that's the Phillies' strongest roster. I just see Rojas can make defensive plays that can win you a playoff game.
A playoff game right now in the 9th inning, you feel all right with Jeff Hoffman on the mound?
I do feel all right with Jeff Hoffman in the game. I think he has pitched well this season. I like another guy back there, another guy with closing experience. We just talked about Mason Miller, so I obviously would feel even better. Hoffman in the 8th, Miller in the 9th. Then I think you got maybe a little Ryan Matson, Brad Litch thing going, right? But right now, I feel better with Hoffman in there than any other reliever available on the market right now, or at least the guys whose names are rumored to be available.
All right, Mike, while we got you, we'll shift a couple quick gears over to the football. The Giants have been on Hard Knocks. Don't know how much of that you've seen, but
I've seen it all.
You've seen it all. So if you've seen it all, does this feel like a 4, 5, 6 win team?
I'm perplexed, Mike, and I wanted to bring this up to you, basically. I look at people predictions for the Giants, and I think I saw the other day 4-13. I think it was USA Today or something like that predicted 4-13. This is a team that has won 6 games last year without the quarterback. The quarterback is back. He's supposedly healthy. They've added Brian Burns. They bolstered the offensive line. Now they've drafted a top receiver from LSU. They let Saquon Barkley walk away. I'm a little surprised at the negativity. I'm not saying the Giants are going to win 10, 11, 12 games, but I think with a healthy quarterback and the additions to the roster, they'd be more in the 8, 9 range. I'm surprised that they're at the 4 range. And maybe you could explain to me why people just feel so negatively about them.
I think there's 2 reasons, Mike. I think the show has really put them in a light that makes them look like they're not on the same page. Believe me, I think Shane has made the right decision in letting Barkley walk, but it's the way it's being perceived is that they fumbled the whole thing because Mara is like, it'll look terrible. I can't sleep if we let him go. But I think Joe Shane is doing the right thing. He doesn't want to pay Barkley, so he doesn't want to look like he just flat out doesn't want the guy. So he's trying to tiptoe around the fact that he didn't want to pay him, which is the right decision. The problem, I guess, is Daniel Jones good enough to be the guy that you lean on? Because Joe Shane is saying, look, when I'm in Buffalo, I didn't have a running back there. We had, Singletary, who we have here. So I think he made the right decision there. I think the way it's being presented has made them look kind of bad. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, the show is being edited for television to make it a good television show, basically. And I really found it fascinating, better than maybe any of the Hard Knocks, because I think it really gives you insight as to what they were thinking, making personnel moves and stuff. It's really been fascinating. When it comes to Saquon Barkley, I think the Giants sometimes get a bad rap from people. I'm old enough to remember when people, especially people in the Philadelphia market and Philadelphia media, were basically making fun of the Giants because they picked Saquon Barkley second in the draft, and they were saying nobody drafts running back second today in today's NFL world. What a waste of a draft pick. And when the Giants turn and don't elect to give a 27-year-old running back with an injury history the best free agent contract out there, when their other running backs, let's face it, the running back free agent market was really, full this year. They're criticized for that too. So yeah, I just find it interesting. Do I expect the Giants to be a 10-11 win team? No, but people talking like they're only going to win 3-4 games. They won 6 last year with Tommy DeVito at quarterback. I mean, Daniel Jones is better than Tommy DeVito.
Well,
there's got to be a win or two more in there.
Listen, and they added Burns to the defensive side of the ball. Right. Their defense was getting better. Now they get another guy. It's just going to be interesting to see what they can do. And I think the prognostication is most people don't like Jones, right? I mean, that's what it comes down to. You lost your best offensive player. You're now anointing Jones as the guy, and most people don't believe in him.
Yeah, we're going to find out about Daniel Jones this year. I go back to the fact that 2 years ago, they did win 10, 11 games. He did go on the road and win a playoff game. Now, albeit it was in Minnesota, but go around the league and check off the box for quarterbacks who have won playoff games on the road. There's not a lot of them, including the guy in Philadelphia down at the Lynx. He hasn't won a playoff game on the road yet. So it is not the easiest thing in the world to do. So, yeah, we're going to find out about Daniel Jones. This is his season. Obviously, the Giants have made the decision. We're going to find out about Daniel Jones. After this year, the contract lightens up a little bit. They can cut him at the end of this year and decide what they want to do. Yeah, it's interesting. I think, Mike, I think it's not a great look for the franchise, and it makes for great TV when they have the head coach. They ask the head coach, hey, do you want to trade up for Jaden Daniels? And he says, hell yeah. He was jumping out of his seat, basically. And I think people are taking that as an indictment of Daniel Jones. They don't believe in Daniel Jones, stuff like that. So I agree with you. I think the show has kind of hurt the Giants and in the public's mind made the Giants look like a hot mess or a train wreck when these are discussions that every NFL team is having. The Giants are just on HBO doing it, basically.
They tried to downplay it today a little bit. Joe Schoen saying, hey, we didn't know if Daniel Jones was even going to be back and ready to play. We got to be prepared for that. So we'll see how that all plays out. Eagles, Giants, they're all back at camp. We'll continue to look at those. By the way, Sixers Reggie Jackson yesterday. Kyle Lowry's back here. They've got Eric Gordon. A lot of guards here. They keep on adding. So the moves that Sixers have made, doing anything for you?
Yeah, I mean, look, this is a better basketball team than it was last year, and this was one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference with, Tobias Harris. And basically, Paul George has replaced Tobias Harris. So I think the Sixers have made a move forward. The thing I think is a lot of teams in the Eastern Conference have also made a move forward in this offseason. I think the overall conference is better. So are the Sixers definitely at the top of the conference? Absolutely. I will say one thing about this summer. I'd feel a little bit better about the 76ers if Joel Embiid would just stop talking. Stop talking to podcasts. Stop talking to the New York Times. I'd feel a little bit better if Joel Embiid just got in a gym, slipped in a few salads once in a while, and did a little better from that angle, and stopped giving us his opinion on every subject that comes down the pike. That's all I'll say about the Sixers.
All right, Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City, PressOfAC.com here on the Sports Bash, at AC Press McGarry on the X platform. Thanks, Mike.
All right, Mike. We'll see you down the road. Thanks.
All right, we fit in a bunch there in a quick amount of time here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. Don't forget, Eagles football is back, and you can hear the Eagles on 97.3 ESPN every game this season with Merrill Reese and Mike Quick. It all starts Friday, August 9th against the Baltimore Ravens in the preseason. You can hear all the action with Merrill Reese and Mike Quick. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN.
It's this.
At Grand Canyon University, we believe in equal opportunity, and the American dream starts with purpose. Whether your pursuit involves a bachelor's, master's, or doctoral degree, GCU's learning environments are designed for supportive networking and collaboration. With over 330 academic programs, GCU provides a path to help you fulfill your dreams. The pursuit to serve others is yours. Find your purpose at GCU. Private, Christian, affordable. Visit gcu.edu.
Mike Gill.
And I am the voice of the voiceless.
On 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
254 Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. The 15-year anniversary party, number one. We're going to be doing it every happy hour Friday throughout the summer, starting this Friday at Giuliano's in Egg Harbor Township. We'll be there from 2 to 6, celebrating 15 years of the show. Come on out, hang out, watch the Phils. 2264 Ocean Heights Avenue, Egg Harbor Township. And we're going to be giving away tickets every hour to see the Smashing Pumpkins and Green Day at Citizens Bank Park. Every hour we'll be giving away Smashing Pumpkins and Green Day tickets for all Happy Hour Friday. This Friday, Giuliano's outside on the patio in Egg Harbor Township. Stop out and see us. $3.50 Bud Light Draft, $4 Neutral Vodka Seltzers. That's this Friday. Happy Hour Friday with the Sports Bash. When we come back, John McMullen is back to talk a little birds.
This is the Sports Bash with Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. Now live from inside the Ocean Casino Resort Studio, here's Mike Gill.
3 o'clock hour brought to you by Broadley's Plumbing, Heating, Air Conditioning. Broadley's your trusted source for heating, plumbing, service, installation, generations. Call them 609-390-3907, online broadleys.net. I'm Mike Gill. Football is back. How do I know? Because Johnny Mack is back. John McMullen, Birds 365, weekday mornings at 8 a.m. on the Jacob Media YouTube channel. And he joins me now as the Eagles are back on the field. And we got plenty to discuss as the Birds are back. Johnny Mack, what's going on, my man?
Whew, humid day, Mike, out there. But day one in the books.
Humid day caused someone to yak today, huh?
Yeah, Mekhi Becton, but I didn't see it, so I wasn't near that part of the sideline. But I trust the people that were there, and yeah. I know Jimmy Kempski called it a faucet, so not a good sign for Mekhi. But he started today because Landon Dickerson was out with a lacerated toe, so he was working pretty hard, and it got to him a little bit.
Let's real quick on Becton. I mean, where do you see him? They did say today that Tyler Steen is going to get the first crack at that right guard spot. Is Becton a factor in that race role, or is they view him more of a depth piece right now?
Well, I think that all depends on Tyler Steen. I think the hope in the best case scenario is that Tyler's the starting right guard and Mekhi Becton's the swing tackle, essentially backing up Lane Johnson and Jordan Mailata on game day. And to be honest, even Tyler Steen as well at right guard. And he's been, mainly at left guard because Landon not only missed today, missed minicamp, which was an excused absence. Now he's got a lacerated toe. So he'll be back soon. He's day-to-day, Landon Dickerson, and then we'll get a better feel for how much they want to look at Mekhi Becton at right guard. I always kind of think back to the Super Bowl season of 2017, and the similarities are pretty stark. Isaac Seumalo was a third-round pick originally, and that was his second year, and they wanted him to take the left guard job at the time, but very similar, obviously. And he started week one, and it wasn't good early in the season, and they benched him, and they went to Chance Warmack for a while. They ended up on Stefan Wisniewski. So, the hope is Tyler Steen seizes the job, but if not, they've got plenty of contingencies, and Mekhi probably leads the list. But, don't forget Matt Hennessy and don't forget Max Sharping, because they're veteran guys who started in this league, and they might be the sort of the safety net like Wiz was. Maybe not great play, but at least if you have to play those guys, it's probably going to be at least competent.
A lot of discussion about the play calls and whose offense and what it's going to look like. I know it's day one. Was there any noticeable difference about how the offense is run, how it might be run, and what it looks like?
Well, I thought it was pretty good, I would say, for day one of camp. Everybody looked pretty sharp. I think the offense looked better than the defense, which is a bit of a surprise considering typically, defenses are ahead of offenses early, and the defense was certainly ahead of the offense in the spring. And then today, most of the plays, there was only one real splash play, a nice touchdown from Jalen Hurts to Dallas Goedert, about 30, 35 yards, and nice throw. Kaylee Ringo was trailing in coverage. CJ was a little bit late to get over, and Jalen Hurts dropped it right in there. And I was thinking, there were a number of those plays in the spring that could have been made and weren't made, specifically with Dallas. Dallas was open all over the place in the spring. Jalen just couldn't hit them. And I thought it was a positive. That's it. He got the opportunity to, so maybe getting a little bit more control with the offense and what it's designed to do. But it's so early in the process. But anytime they're looking better than the defense, it's good, because it didn't happen often in the spring.
John McMullen, Birds 365, weekday mornings, 8 a.m. on the Jacob Media YouTube channel here as the Eagles open up camp today. A lot to discuss on that side of the ball offensively here. And a lot of what did you make of Hurts coming out saying, before I take any questions, I'm going to address, the whole, him and getting along with everybody. Was that a surprise?
Yeah, he does that every once in a while. It's kind of funny. And on a typical press conference, say after a game, they put a little bottle of water up there. He likes to open it and, take a little swig before he starts. And there's always, maybe reporters who aren't too familiar with him, they might jump the gun and try to get that first question in. And he kind of goes in a different direction. And that's what he did today. I think, if we go back to a mini camp and what he didn't say, it really wasn't what he said. It's what he didn't say about Nick Sirianni. I think people were disappointed in the organization because it was a layup. It was an easy answer. It was, hey, he's doing great. Next question, basically. You don't have to go into a long soliloquy. That's all you have to say, and he didn't say it. And the problem was the timing. Because they were going away for 6 weeks. And you're on the radio every day, Mike. You see all the rampant speculation, because people can take it any way they want to go. And I think from the organization standpoint, it's, take control of those situations, make the layups when they're there. And I think he tried to do that today.
Yeah, that story, the whole thing that does, now, today, Hurts admits the lack of the coordinator continuity has been difficult, but he, is excited to work with Moore. That all that stuff. Yeah, okay, the lack of continuity there. He's excited to work with Moore. Of course, he's going to say that. But the whole thing of the offseason getting to where him and Sirianni maybe aren't on the same page, or there's something there. I just can't see that it would get to that point, right? That just doesn't add up to me. That Sirianni and him wouldn't get along in any aspect, and they kept Sirianni around, right? Or am I off on that?
Well, he said they weren't on the same page. He said that at the press conference. Ultimately, the transcript will be out. People can see it. He said it at one point. So, that happens, though. I think, look, he's very close with Brian Johnson. Brian got scapegoated. Maybe he was upset by that. Early in the process. And maybe he's getting over it. Time heals all wounds and things like that. It's interesting how Roseman talked before practice, and he said someone asked him about the continuity and that Jalen has not had, which, dates back before Philadelphia. And how he was kind of honest about it in the NFL is, look, you lose people if you're not good in this league, and you lose people if you are good. So, I mean, the continuity part of it's really sustainable if you want to be as good as you expect to be, because you saw it with Shane Steichen. He's a head coach. You'll see it this year with Kellen Moore. If the Eagles are successful, it's probably going to be a head coach.
Yeah.
And if you fail, same thing. If you fail with those expectations, maybe Nick Sirianni's gone. Maybe the whole coaching staff besides Jeff Stoutland is gone. That's the way it works in this league. So it's kind of tough. And Howie kind of chuckled because he's the one who's got continuity, and he's the one who's always here. But I think people should realize that's rare.
Yeah.
Howie Roseman. So from the coaching perspective, if you're good, you're going to lose coaches. If you're bad, you're going to lose coaches.
John, what do you make of the whole? I mean, is it news to you about, people saying Roseman gave his version of the hiring process today? Sirianni had said, Moore was his pick. There's been some reporting that says not the case. And then others have said, that's not normal that the GM picks the coordinators. We see the Hard Knocks where the giant Dable comes in. I'm going to go off for the job. And boom. Chase Daniels on the podcast the other day said that's not normal. So what do you make of that whole dynamic between Roseman, Sirianni, and how they got to the coordinators?
Yeah, Howie didn't hire the coordinators, and I was the one who asked him that question, and he gave a pretty thoughtful answer, I thought. Certainly there's a collaboration aspect of it, but bottom line, he said, I'm in charge of the players. That's my responsibility, building the roster, and Nick's in charge of his coaching staff, and that's his responsibility. So he did end up at that level. I think it's the reputation he has around the league of being this omnipresent, puppet master. Sometimes I think he likes it. Sometimes I think he doesn't like it. But in this instance, I wrote about this at Sports Illustrated, and I sent it off to the Eagles before I published it, not to get their approval, but to ask anyone. A bunch of different people, do you have any pushback to this? Do you dispute any of this? And not one of them did, and that's the fact that Nick hires the coaches. Now, when he doesn't have a coach, Howie will often gather candidates, and then Nick will interview them and ultimately make the same decision. So there's a lot of collaboration. And that's what he was saying. It's the same thing when he was drafting Quindown Mitchell. He used that example. And, Nick has people he's very close to at Toledo. And he gave his thoughts on the pick. And it just made Howie feel better. And Howie said, look, I've been around this league for a long time. So have Vic and so has Kellen. And I've had prior relationships with them. And if it made Nick more comfortable, that's fine. But ultimately, he said it's Nick's responsibility. Everything I've heard behind the scenes said it was Nick's responsibility. And they're very good liars if they're lying. And I don't see why they would lie.
John McMullen, Birds 365. I look at the news this morning, it just seems, as you wrote at Sports Illustrated, kind of bookkeeping, but Cooper DeJean being a part of the bookkeeping. 3 weeks, I don't know what he was doing, maybe yoga, maybe he was whatever. He was in a weird position, apparently. But how much does that put him back? They say, hey, we expected to be ready, but you're a rookie, second-round pick, don't really know what your position is yet, and now you have to miss 3 weeks. What does that do?
Yeah, Nick admits it'll set him back. Training camp isn't that, it's not like the old days when it went on for 8 weeks, it seemed. This is a significant portion of time. It's supposed to be about 3 weeks, and I think a lot of people thought he might push Avonte Maddox to be the starting slot corner week 1 against Green Bay and Brazil. I don't think that's going to happen now. You never know Avonte and his health problems and if he's going to stay healthy, but if he does stay healthy, I think it's a pretty good bet now that Avonte Maddox is going to be the starting slot corner no matter what. And maybe this just pushes things back to week 4, week 5. But they certainly want to get Cooper DeJean and even more so Quinyon Mitchell on the field. And I think they will this season. But, yeah, it doesn't help. And obviously you start to wonder – the reason Cooper was the 40th overall pick and not in the 20s or somewhere like that, like Quinyon Mitchell, is because he broke his fibula at Iowa. So now you have injury stacked on injury, and you're going to hear those questions. And it's tough to stay on the field at times in this league, but it's only going to be about 3 weeks. It's not the worst thing in the world. And you do have to, and I agree with the Eagles from the perspective of, especially with fast guys, and Cooper's tremendously athletic, tremendously fast. When you have those thoroughbred type players, and you're talking about hamstrings, they can nag if you try to push it and you re-injure it, and some bad things can happen. So I think the idea is to settle it down, make sure he's 100% before he gets back out there.
I know it's day one, but any early read on that highly anticipated cornerback battle?
It's going to be a battle, I would say.
Who was opposite? Who was opposite? Was Bradbury there?
Bradbury was there, and Bradbury was playing safety. He was second-team safety. He did not play corner at all. 3 different players got reps at right corner. Isaiah Rodgers got the first one. Then it was Ringo. Then Quinyon Mitchell. Interesting, Quinyon played all 3 positions. He was Slay's backup on the left side. He played at a couple reps as a slot corner, and he also played on the right side. So pretty interesting how much they're throwing at him early in the process. And that's what Vic said. He likes to throw a lot at people early and then scale back from there. So that's kind of interesting. They also seem to have 2 different mindsets, sort of a run support base, which is where Rodgers played, which is interesting because he doesn't really have a reputation in run support. And then the more pass-heavy group, pass defense, Ringo was out there, and Nakobe Dean was out there at linebacker along with Devin White. Whereas in that run package, it was Devin White and Zach Bond plus Isaiah Rodgers. So it looks like he's going to mix and match, and it's going to be interesting to see how the carousel stops in the back 7, not just the defensive backfield, but also the linebackers.
Right. I mean, so, and did I read also Maddox played some safety as well?
Yeah, he was the 3rd-team safety, so it was obviously CJ and Reed Blankenship are entrenched. They're the starters. And then it was Tristan McCullum and James Bradbury were the 2nd team. And then Avonte was on the 3rd team with Mekhi Gardner at safety. So it's interesting. It's rare that you see a first-team player also playing on the 3rd team, but that was what Avonte was doing.
And staying in that safety room, Sidney Brown, he's on the PUP list, but what are you thinking about? Is he a factor in this safety race at all in your mind?
Well, he's going to be back relatively early in the season. It's a matter of how early and how cautious the Eagles want to be. He thinks he's always put week 1 as his goal. but he tore his ACL early January, whatever it was, 6th, 7th, in week 18. And it's a 9-month injury generally when it comes to rehab. Like if you saw him today, he was out there again today. He was out there throughout the spring. If you saw him, you'd say, wow, he looks like he can play right now. But ACLs need a certain amount of time to heal from a medical perspective, and that demarcation line is generally 9 months. And that would push it into the season, week 2 or week 3. And, then you start to say, all right, how cautious do you want to be? Because the NFL liberalized the roster rules this year, and you can put guys on injured reserve before the cut to 53 now. You can have 2 guys that you can designate to return. You used to not be able to do that. You used to have to keep them on the 53 and then put them on IR. Now it's easier. They could put him on IR. That means he misses the first 4 games, and he's back week 5. I think that's the worst-case scenario for Sidney Brown, missing 4 games. But if they think he's going to be ready before that, they'll just carry him. And when he is back, he'll be the third safety.
John McMullen, Birds 365, weekday mornings, 8 a.m. on the Jacob Media YouTube channel. Any separation at the third wide receiver? How are they using that third guy?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, if it's one day, it's over. It's Ferris Campbell. He had a good day. He might have had the best day of anyone today. He really handled the young corners, especially, pretty well today. Had these violent comeback routes where he just fooled the corners with his speed and then stopped on the dime and came back. He did it 3 times. He had a really good day. So, how he said before, he admitted we're going to be looking at that position basically on a daily basis. So, I mean, Ferris Campbell's been in the league for a while, and hasn't produced. So, one good day, he's a former 2nd-round pick. He's got talent. Everybody knows that. So the key is going to be consistency, but right now he's far and away the leader in the clubhouse, and we'll see how it shakes out. I mean, if that consistency doesn't hold up from day to day in practice, then you probably start to see how he's looking around, maybe outside the building, because there's not a lot of options. The Eagles' depth is not good at wide receiver. The top 2 are obviously phenomenal.
Right.
But the depth on paper is not good.
Got any look at Nolan Smith? There's some buzz about, Darius Slay said, look for him to have a big year, and that gets people excited. Any thoughts on, did you get a chance to possibly see what kind of role he might have?
Well, I mean, Nolan's going to be in the rotation, the 3rd guy, 4th guy, either or, depending on how much Brandon Graham's going to play. So, I mean, the main guys are going to be Bryce Huff and Josh Sweat, and then it's going to be Brandon and Nolan Smith. So he's got to play. He's going to play far more significant snaps. He's gained some weight. He's up to 245. He looks visibly stronger, so that was a part of it. But I think with Nolan, the biggest issue was the shoulder, and we're going to have to see if it holds up. He was the Eagles were very excited to get him where they got him, and I know the rest of the league was not happy that the Eagles got him. But if that shoulder proves to be problematic again, and it's a degenerative type condition, that could derail him pretty quickly. Otherwise, I think he's going to be a good player, and people jump the gun. Sometimes it takes. Not everybody hits the ground running in this league as a rookie, and I don't think you should be writing people off just because they didn't. They weren't Devon Kearse in their rookie year.
On the flip side of Nolan Smith, Brandon Graham, you mentioned him, his 15th and final season. He said today, it's my last year. I'm just going to try to soak it all in. Does Graham have a minor role, a similar role to what we've seen in the past? What do we think about Brandon Graham in his last year?
Well, I think it's very similar, and it might even be more because the Eagles have been very cognizant as he's gotten to the later stages of his career, putting him on a pitch count to get him. They always knew, because he said it he's been very honest. He wanted to get to 15 seasons before he retired. This is his 15th season. It breaks Chuck Bednarik's record. He's already played more games than any other Eagle, which is phenomenal if you think about the start of his career. And, had pitch counts over the past 2 years, understanding he was going to be back the next year. Now he's not going to be back. So they might say, let's use all the gas in the tank, because he's a very effective player when he's on the field. He's certainly willing to do it. But I think a lot of that has to do with Nolan as well. Look, if Nolan's not playing well, then you either have to hope Alex Hunt is not a redshirt player and is more of a natural and he can be impactful, or somebody like Julian Okwara, and you're going down the depth chart. So if they need him, he'll raise his hand and he'll go out there. So I think it's a little counterintuitive. I think everyone assumes Brandon's going to play less. I think he might play a little bit more because it is his last season.
Well, John, football's back. I know the people have been asking, when's McMullen back? I said, well, the Eagles aren't back yet, but now they are. And there's John McMullen at JF McMullen on the X platform. And, of course, you can check him out weekday mornings at 8 a.m. on the Jacob Media YouTube channel.
And tonight, during training camp days, just a little, I'm going to be on 6 to 8, so it's going to be a night show, 6 to 8 at night.
So was there no show this morning? Was there no show this morning?
There was like a half hour.
Gotcha.
I had to get down there very.
I was wondering. I didn't get my link this morning.
No, I forgot. I apologize. I did the same thing to BLG, but I knew BLG was going to be there. So.
Well, I
forgot to text you.
I usually get you good for tomorrow, and I give you the thumbs up, and I didn't get it. And then I set my alarm just in case. No, I didn't need to set my alarm. I didn't need to set my alarm. I was awake, but I needed to set the alarm to remind me to look for the link. Is what I have to do. So I was wondering. I said, you know what? The practice got moved.
That's my fault.
Apology. It's all right. Well, I saw when the practice got moved from 10 to 9. I was wondering what was going to happen there. But all right, man. Well, football's back. Johnny Mack is back, and we have him here on the Sports Bash looking at the Birds 2024 Day 1 at the NovaCare Complex. Thanks, John.
All right, thanks, Mike.
All right, and John, of course, the busy season is here. He's always busy. Does a great job on Birds 365. And, of course, right here, back on the Sports Bash for another season of Eagles coverage on 97.3 ESPN. Phillies coverage right now. The Phillies are up 4-1 as we are in the bottom of the seventh. 4-1 was an RBI. First off, it was the home run from Trey Turner that tied the game up at 1-1. And then, how about this? My man Castellanos, I say my man tongue-in-cheek because he hit a 2-out RBI double for Castellanos. And then, boom, 2 doubles in the game today. Schwarber with 2 RBI, with a 2-out RBI. So a home run from Turner, Castellanos, Turner, and 2 RBI from Schwarber. There's the score 4-1. Kirkering is in the game right now in relief of Nola. Now, Kirkering is my boy. That's not tongue-in-cheek. He is my boy. All right, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. You know, a lot of people have been asking me about my guy Rocco over at Key Acura of Atlantic City. In fact, I was there last night. Stopped in last night, rolled out in a new 2024 MDX. They got a few in stock, but they all got to go. So, Rocco has been saying, hey, man, try one of my MDXs out. Let me know what you think. So I've been driving around this MDX now. I had it 2 weeks ago. I brought it back, and then I called him yesterday. I said, is there any chance I can get that MDX back? So I stopped by last night, and that's what I've been driving. I got to tell you, love it. Absolutely love it. It's amazing the difference in terms of how comfortable and the height. I like the height. It gives me a nice feel up on the road. The 2024 MDX are in stock. They all must go this month. And you could drive up the lot just like I did in the 2024 MDX all-wheel drive technology package. $499 a month, 36 months with $49.95 down. That's it. Low mileage lease, current Acura owners right now. That's your deal. There's only a couple left. In fact, there's so few left that he might call me and say, I got to bring mine back so you can drive it if you want it. It's only a Kia Acura. Tilton Road EHC. Your small but friendly dealer. And I got to thank Rocco for waiting for me last night to get over there to hook me up with the MDX. I said, listen, I really like it. You think I can keep driving? He said, come on down. Come on down. So he'll take care of you as well. Mention Mike Gill from the Sports Bash. Sent ya. It is the Sports Bash live on 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, and streaming live video on the X platform at Mike Gill Show. Coming back with more Sports Bash next.
You're listening with Mike Gill.
When I'm driving, I got a guy on the radio who talks to me. I can't see him, but he talks to me.
On 97.3 ESPN.
In that area, when you don't have the continuity that been 10 different play callers at some point over the past 8 years for me. When you don't have that, it's kind of tough to learn how to talk to someone, how to communicate, how are they receptive, how are we growing to get to the same page. But I'm looking forward to that, and I've enjoyed that process with Coach Kellen. I've enjoyed every bit of it, just talking and how he sees the game. His trust in my judgment and my instincts is very important.
That was Jalen Hurts today. He admitted, 8 coordinators, 10 years or something, he said, play callers?
10 coordinators in 8 years.
10 and 8. Not 8 and 10, 10 and 8.
Worse.
I had a little dyslexia in my brain there.
It's okay. I have it every day.
Remember, I think it was the Screaming Trees had a song from the Singles soundtrack. It's called Dyslexic Heart.
Sounds like an interesting song.
Yeah, Singles, 90s, a little sappy.
90s was a good time for sappy.
I think it was the Screaming Trees. I'm pretty sure. Anybody out there want to fact check me on that? Phillies 4, Twins 2. Kerkering loaded the bases. Strom hit somebody, and that's where we are with 2 outs in the bottom of the 7th. 4-2. We'll keep you updated. If you're watching the live video on the X platform at Mike Gill Show, we have the scroll on the bottom with the score updated for you so you can watch the show, keep the Phillies score going for you. We keep it updated for you here on the Sports Bash Live, and I think that the Twins have he missed it. Oh, my gosh. Marsh had a beat on that, ran all the way to the ball, and then he closed his glove and missed it.
I mean, it's not the first time he's lost track of a ball in the outfield this year.
That was poor.
He usually does that. Look at Rojas literally just pointed to him like, dude.
I mean, this ball's driven. It's a bomb, and I don't know if he missed it or he just didn't, he outstretched and he just
missed it. That's a whiff.
I don't know what to say about that.
That's an error.
I don't know if it's error. It didn't touch his glove. You can't give him an error, but you got to catch that ball.
I mean, it's right next to his glove.
I mean, today the scoring.
It's pathetic.
That ball's got to be caught.
Exactly.
It's 4-4 now. Strom, last night we were talking about Strom getting the save in the game. Now tonight, he comes in a big spot and just couldn't clean up Kerkering's mess.
By the way, Peter Westerberg with Dyslexic Heart.
Peter Westerberg.
Screaming Trees.
Paul Westerberg?
Paul Westerberg.
I was going to say, Peter doesn't sound right.
Paul Westerberg is...
This was on the Singles soundtrack.
And then Screaming Trees did a song called Nearly Lost You.
Yes. I know that song. I could probably belt it out for you if you had wanted me to, but I won't. I'll spare the people today.
Maybe tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow, remind me. Say, hey, Screaming Trees, Nearly Lost You.
Screaming Trees, Nearly Lost You.
I know the song. The album, do you know the Singles album?
I don't know the album.
You know the movie?
I'm familiar with the movie.
Yeah. Well, the album was... The soundtrack was
soundtrack of the movie.
A very popular soundtrack because it had a lot of different, 90s alt, rock bands that were... there was... Mad Season, I think, had a track in there.
By the way, Dyslexic Heart was, according to this, 1992.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the whole movie, yeah. The soundtrack was, the movie was like 92, 93. Yeah, Mad Season, I think, had a song in there. That was Chris Cornell with Alice in Chains collaboration. All right. My my depth of the singles album is pretty crazy, right?
Wood, Alice in Chains.
Wood, Alice in Chains.
Seasons, Chris Cornell.
Oh, Seasons is Chris Cornell, yep.
Yep. I'm just going down the list here.
Yep.
Battle of Evermore.
Yeah. That was, I do know that I could picture the song.
Love Mongers, that was that.
I wouldn't have got
Birth that. Ritual by Soundgarden.
That was Soundgarden.
Overblown. Mudhoney. May This Be Love. That's Jimi Hendrix. Drown.
Drown is the Pumpkins.
That's correct. That's your guys.
Yeah, you can't get that one past me.
Breath.
Pearl Jam?
That's correct. Chloe Dancer. This one's probably a little more
Chloe Dancer? It's like, I just watched.
I never heard this group. So.
Chasing Amy. Chloe, so-and-so.
Chasing Amy's a funny movie.
Chloe was the guy's name, I think, that had the story about, I can't even think of my names are. Go ahead. Who was that?
The band's Mother Love Bone.
Mother Love Bone. Yes, I'm familiar with them.
State of Love and Trust.
Yeah, that was the collaboration of Pearl Jam and I can't remember who. I forget what they were called.
Yeah, but it just has listed as Pearl Jam, right? On least in the list in front of me.
Gotcha.
Nearly Lost You.
Screaming Trees.
That's correct. And that's the album.
Yeah, it was a very iconic album. Because all like the different collaborations and stuff on that.
Yeah. There you go.
All right.
Your memory's still there.
So we were talking about the Jalen Hurts stuff. I'm interested in how he acknowledged that the lack of continuity has been an issue for Hurts. This is interesting to hear from the GM.
Doesn't relate to Jalen. You know, the hardest part about continuity in the NFL from front office, from a coaching staff, is that you win, you lose people. You lose people. And so it's really hard to keep a lot of good people in place for a long period of time. This is nothing about Jalen, but just in general. So, you know, it's just probably a little bit different than other industries where it's hard to do that.
He's not wrong about that. Like, we always talk about, they don't have the same coordinator every year. That happens everywhere. When you're a good quarterback, you generally lose your coordinator.
At some point, yeah.
Because the head coach isn't just getting up and leaving. If he's staying, they go to the next guy.
Well, it's also the idea that if you do a good job as a coordinator, what happens? You get a head coaching job, like Shane Steichen did.
Right, so...
Or half of Andy Reid's staff over the years.
The point that McMullen made and then Roseman said there, like, if you're bad, the coordinator gets fired, so he's gone. If you're good, the coordinator gets hired, so he's gone. Good quarterbacks. Now, you have interesting situations where Andy Reid, his coordinator hasn't been plucked from him like all the time. And a lot of people say, well, it's because Reid calls the plays.
Correct.
The enemy was there for a while. Now it's the quarterback that was the Eagles, Kafka.
Well, Kafka's
now
actually
he's gone.
The
He's
Giants.
with the Giants. But it was him for a little.
It's Matt Nagy.
Matt Nagy, yes. So,
well, you had the quarterback right because Matt Nagy did have a day as an Eagles quarterback in camp.
But like, there's like Shanahan.
Yes,
is the play caller generally. So you can't. The continuity's there. So I guess you could say if Sirianni was a stronger play caller, that the continuity would be better.
Maybe.
Uh-huh.
But you also could argue that they, according to the reporting, think that Sirianni's best value is as the CEO and not the play caller.
And I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem. But that causes the lack of continuity.
Right. That creates the opportunity for the revolving door.
Miami, McDaniel's going to be the play caller.
100%.
And he's not going anywhere. So you'll have the continuity constantly there.
But look at Baltimore. Baltimore's been through a gazillion offensive coordinators in the John Harbaugh era.
Roseman today gave his assertion of how they landed on Kellen Moore, which yesterday, according to Chase Daniel and Diana Rossini on the Scoop City podcast. They believe that Roseman, in fact, right, hired. Do we have that audio of them saying that she believes that Howie hired the coordinators? Take a listen to this.
It's Howie Roseman that has the power now. And look, he always has the power, right? That's nothing new for Philadelphia. But in terms of moving forward into this season, Howie had his hands all over the decisions when it came to the coordinator position. And when they made change at defense.
Which is not normal, by the way, for everyone listening, for a GM to have his hand in coordinator positions.
All right. Not normal for the GM to have his hand in the coordinator position. Sal Powell on the Sports Bash earlier this year said this.
Nick Sirianni may be calling some of his friends, but he's not in any position at all in his organization. I think we can agree on this, to hire somebody. He may recommend somebody, but he's not hiring the offensive or defensive coordinators. That's
right.
For sure.
That was Sal Powell on the Sports Bash. Here's what Howie Roseman said today about his version of who hired Kellen Moore.
Nick will come to me and say, these are the guys I'm thinking about. Do you have any relationship? Do you know these guys? You know, obviously, I've been in the league a long time. I had prior relationships with both of those guys. It makes him feel better about the decision he's making. I mean, these aren't under-the-radar guys. These are talented guys that have been in the league for a long time. And that's how good organizations make decisions. At the end of the day, I'm responsible for the players that I bring in here, draft, free agency, and he's responsible for his coaching staff. But we work together. You know, that's the whole part of being a team.
So whose version are we buying here? Howie's, Rossini's, or Sal Powell's?
There's an old wise man once, I remember a proverb that said that there are facts and there are true facts. There are the facts that we find to support our argument. There are the facts that we use to make our argument. And I feel like that there's probably some truth in between these two, right? There's a little bit of a, Howie is, trying to spin it to make it sound like he's less of an authoritarian the way Diana Rossini made it sound. And I think he doesn't want to, lean into what Sal Paolantonio said, where it's like, Nick Sirianni is just this Sal didn't mean it like this, but you could almost see like, Nick Sirianni's a buffoon. You know what I mean? Oh, Nick Sirianni, he's just doing what he's told, right? And so I think that was Howie's way of trying to give his head coach his dignity and his position back a little bit publicly.
Right. The way that Roseman made it out was Sirianni had guys that he said, hey, I like these guys. Do you know who they are? Right? It's almost like
he brought them a list and they talked about it.
So quite frankly, I don't know that it matters unless Sirianni was against it.
Right. If Sirianni, that's what got Doug Peterson fired. That's part of the conversation we've had, right? Doug Peterson wanted Press Taylor. Jeffrey Lurie said no. Doug was shown the door. So as part of the reason why Sirianni is here, it's been assumed that it's because he doesn't say, I have to have this guy when everybody else says no.
Yeah, that's the only thing I would say is this. If you are wondering, right? If you're wondering if Sirianni's on board with it.
Well, if you go by Sirianni's own words from the Athletic article that came out from his media roundtable, the quote said in there that he realized that this was what was best for the team and that he wanted to give Kellen Moore this power. So that's what Sirianni says in public. We don't know how it goes on behind the scenes.
Sports Bash this hour brought to you by Broadlee's Plumbing, Heating, Air Conditioning. Broadlee's your trusted source for heating, plumbing, service, and installation for generations. 609-390-3907. Online, Broadlees.net. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash live on 97.3 ESPN. Football at 4. Jeff Mosher today will give us some insight on what he is seeing and hearing at Eagles camp today, which opened at the NovaCare Complex. That's coming up in 11 minutes from now on the Sports Bash.
This is the story of the one. As head of maintenance at a concert hall, he knows the show must always go on. That's why he works behind the scenes, ensuring every light is working, the HVAC is humming, and his facility shines. With Grainger's supplies and solutions for every challenge he faces, plus 24/7 customer support, his venue never misses a beat. Call quickgrainger.com or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
The Sports Bash with Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
.354 Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, streaming live video on the X platform at Mike Gill Show. Friday, August 9th, the Eagles are back on 97.3 ESPN. You can listen to every Eagles game with Merrill Reese and Mike Quick here on your home for Eagles football, 97.3 ESPN. Don't forget, we're celebrating 15 years of the Sports Bash at Giuliano's Pub and Grill, Ocean Heights, EHT, this Friday from 2 to 6. Stop out, have a beer, enter to win tickets to see the Smashing Pumpkins in Green Day. They're at Citizens Bank Park. It's going to be an awesome show. And we're giving away tickets every hour. We'll have more prizes as well. Celebrating 15 years of the Sports Bash. Come out. Let us know when you first started listening, how long you've been listening. Happy Hour Friday. Give us some suggestions. They got really good taps at Giuliano's. Been there plenty of times. Great food, great wings, great menu. We're going to be outside on the patio. We do have 2 more locations that have confirmed for the 15th anniversary celebration of the summer. It's Happy Hour Friday all summer long, starting off this Friday at Giuliano's. So if you're in the listening audience, make an appointment to stop by, hang out for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, the whole show. Stick around afterwards. Watch the Phillies game. $3.50 Bud Light Drafts, $4 neutral vodka seltzers.
97.3 ESPN presents the Sports Bash with Mike Gill. It's time for Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast.
Just hungry to bring back another Lombardi to Philly. The fans deserve it. Our team deserves it. Culture begs for it.
Now live, this is Football at 4.
Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, and Jeff Mosher is in the house today. Don't forget, Friday, August 9th, Eagles are back on the radio against the Ravens, and they're working their way towards that starting today. Jeff Mosher with the Eagles were on the field at training camp. Yes, there were actual practice happening. The players are back, and football is back, and so is Jeff Mosher. What's up, buddy?
How you doing, Mike? What's going on?
All is well, man. It's good to have football back. It's good to hear everything happening up there. The battle's already started. We've already got a guy battling the elements out there. Looked like Mekhi Becton couldn't hold his lunch in today.
Well, that has happened before. It is not uncommon. Now, it's pretty humid out there. It's not as hot and humid as it can be in August, but I have never in my life, Mike, weighed 360 pounds. So I'm not going to comment on what it's like to be north of 340 or 350 and have to practice in heat and / humidity. Just know it was obviously it was a rough go there from a guy on the first day.
Right, and he was out at left guard because of a kind of a minor injury, I guess, to Landon Dickerson. But, you know, you're one of the first guys that I heard anyway talking about Becton being a possibility at guard. The fact that he plugged into the left guard spot, do you think he's a factor at right guard, or do they look at him as kind of a swing guy?
Well, I tell you, I mean, as I reported that day they signed him, yes, they want to take a look at him at guard to see what they've got there, because obviously the guy that they're trying to have win the job, Tyler Steen, has never really started there before outside of one game last year. So, you know, just like with Cam Jurgens last year, a lot of it is a projection, and you hope that the acclimation process is good and that he's ready, but you want to have good depth. You want to have backups. You want to have someone who, like Steph Wisniewski so many years ago, right, could step in and claim that job if the starter isn't ready to go, or in that case, Isaac Seumalo just, you know, he just wasn't from a confidence standpoint ready in 2017. So Becton, I think, Mike, I don't want to say they're getting fortunate, right, but They obviously were able to get Becton in at left guard and right guard at OTAs because some guys weren't there or things were going on. So this minor injury to Landon Dickerson gives them another chance to evaluate Becton with the first team.
Right. He was in at left guard with the first team there, and obviously he's a guy Becton has never played guard, at least at the professional level, right?
As far as I know, he has never played guard. You don't see a lot of 6'7",
right? He's a big dude,
pound guards. Yeah.
As far as the offensive side of the ball, let's stick over there. You got Paris Campbell, who apparently had a pretty good day today. Is there a wide gap for that third spot? Is he clearly the leader in the clubhouse?
Well, Josh and I had some fun on Monday, Mike, when you weren't in, on just sort of handicapping certain odds. Like, what would you put? Adam and I on the podcast, our last podcast, we talked about starting linebackers. Zach Baun seems like a dark horse, even though we put him at like plus 225 to start. Devin White minus 20. I think when you're looking at number 3 wide receiver, you almost want to do the Paris Campbell versus the field, but the field might have to include an outside signing that is yet to happen. Paris Campbell's getting the first shot. He's not a natural slot receiver. He's played it before. He was with Indianapolis, but that's not really the spot. I mean, he's a speed receiver. He's a Z outside move receiver. But hey, like you just said, he's got the experience compared to the rest. So they're giving him that shot. But I think that this is one of those things where, and I think Nick Sirianni and Howie Roseman acknowledges they've got their eyes on that position. And if they've got to make a move, they will.
Yeah, and I think on the offensive side of the ball, when you're looking at stuff, it's the right guard spot, it's that third spot there, and then it's how they're going to use Saquon Barkley. And I don't know that we got a lot of, look at that yet, but a lot of conversation this week about whose offense, who's calling the plays. No, it's Kellen Moore's offense. He's kind of running things here. I don't know that we see anything different day one, but do you think this offense will have a different look and feel to it this season?
Oh, Mike, it has to. It needs to. I mean, you don't bring in an offensive coordinator from a different ideological background, go from West Coast offense to spread offense, go from no motion to a guy who's familiar with motion, to go with a lot of 2x2 route concepts, 3x1 concepts, to a guy who has brought bunch formation, trip formations. You don't do that if you don't expect your offense to have a different look. I mean, that was the whole point. If it wasn't, then they would have just told Nick Sirianni, take your offense and freshen it up a little bit, tidy it up a little bit so you're not predictable. They didn't do that. Instead, they said, nope, we're getting a new offensive coordinator with completely new schemes and ideas. Now, again, offense is offense, right? There's a X receiver, there's a Y receiver, a Z receiver, there's 5 offensive linemen, you got a tight end. So I'm not trying to make it sound like West Coast offense and spread offense are like the difference between speaking German and speaking Japanese. That's not the case, but you're obviously got an entirely new offense. So it should and needs to look different.
The opening question for Nick Sirianni today was that the relationship with Hurts is a work in progress. They're 4 years in now. And then, Hurts has an opening statement basically that he wants to address the relationship here. Where do you think they are entering year number 4?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I always think that sometimes...
Whose question's a good one? Mine to yours or the question to Sirianni's?
Yeah, but more so yours. Yours is a good question because I don't think... No matter what is said, I think we've all been in this game long enough to know that just because something is said behind a microphone doesn't mean it's gospel, right? I tend to think that sometimes reports get blown out of proportion, especially in the downtime, and maybe that's the case with this. I don't think these guys are arch enemies. I don't think they dislike each other at all. I do think they like each other. I do believe that there is mutual respect. I don't know that it's like I'm trying to think of a good, comparison, like a Bill Walsh, Joe Montana thing, but even they butted heads at times. So I think it's where it needs to be. There's respect. There's a good room. There's a coach that is considered a player's coach who takes the advice of his players. So I'm not really worried as much about the relationship between them as much as I am, more curious about how all the different coaches now between Sirianni and Patullo, Nussmeier and Kellen Moore, and then Jalen Hurts being caught in the middle. I'm just worried, more concerned about that. How does that operation go?
Jeff, Mosher Football 4 from the Inside the Birds podcast. All right, so I don't know what your assertion is of the report about the coordinators. Diana Russini confirming that Howie hires the coordinators. Does it matter? There's been a lot of back and forth on that. Howie talked about it today. He said, no, he brings me the list. So he's trying to make it like it's a collaboration here. What say you about this whole, how they got to these coordinators? And does it matter?
I don't think it matters much unless it's being forced upon, and I don't think that's the case. I never got the sense that was the case. They did talk to a lot of different offensive coordinators, right, and went to Kellen Moore. We always talk about how they cast a wide net, and it's been my experience that there are times with different head coaches where Howie did have to play a bigger role because certain head coaches didn't know the landscape as well, and so Howie would have to either bring guys in, but no matter who gets brought in, they talk to Howie, they talk to Nick, they talk to Jeffrey, talk to other people in the organization. So it is never a case where Howie brings a guy in, interviews him, and says, hey, I just interviewed this guy. I like him. Here's your offensive coordinator. Here's your defensive coordinator. Yeah. I know people roll their eyes when they hear collaborative process, and sometimes that word does get overused. But there's no surprise like, bam, this is your guy, whether you like it or not. That's never been put to me that it's been like that.
Well, and I guess in the podcast, Diana Russini with, I guess, Chase Daniel is the analyst, if you will. He said that's not normal, that the GM would have a hand. We see during Hard Knocks in the Giants here, Brian Daboll goes to Joe Schoen and says, I'm going to make an offer to the coordinator. It didn't seem like there was much pushback there. It's, hey, if that's your guy, go make the offer.
Right. Well, I mean, look, we've had this conversation before. The Eagles are not normal. They do things differently, and not a lot of teams have a GM in place who has as much power as Howie Roseman. So a lot of their things that they do are going to be seen as abnormal. Like we can go back and talk about stories of Jeffrey Lurie kind of giving his opinion on a draft pick, and some might say that that's not normal, but that's how it's worked in the Eagles. You saw just this past draft, right? Jeffrey sitting at the laptop, talking to Howie about trading up and trading down. You can see some war rooms where you don't even see the owner within 5 feet of the GM. So, yeah, the Eagles do things differently.
What'd you think of Roseman's answer today when he was asked about if he's paying attention to Hard Knocks?
I was surprised that he was asked that question in that manner. Like, listen, I'm not trying to rip a reporter. If you really wanted to know what he felt, though, you would say, how did you feel about the Giants being on Hard Knocks? Or how did you feel about conversations with, say, one of your players now being broadcast? So he kind of left the door open for Howie to not really make a comment about it. Yeah. But it doesn't surprise me at all that Howie was not going to comment about it.
I like it. He says, the Giants are on Hard Knocks? Those are my thoughts.
Yeah. And by the way, that's the way it should be. You really shouldn't comment on another team's TV, happenings.
Cooper DeJean's injury, how impactful is that in your mind? He's going to miss 3 weeks of camp here. I mean, you might say, okay, he's ready for the season, but missing 3 weeks for a rookie who really doesn't have a defined role, we think, yet.
Yeah, and I think that's tough. At the end of the day, they'll wind up, he'll play, when he's healthy, and they'll figure out a way to get him on the field. But it does open up some opportunities for a guy like Tyler Hall, who's been brought in to play the nickelback spot or compete for the nickelback spot with Avonte Maddox, right? Eli Ricks, another guy who now has inside-outside versatility because he added that to his arsenal last year, playing the slot. So to me, it opens up the door for those guys to get more time, get more reps, and give the coaches a little bit more evaluation of players who you aren't certain are going to make the roster compared to DeJean, who is going to be on the team.
Right, yeah. It's just you wonder now, does that set him back from a bigger role than maybe he would have had week one?
Yeah, it's very possible. And, maybe that makes them – and look, we got 5-6 weeks here, right? Maybe it makes them look at Avonte Maddox and his experience and say, we're going to need that now more because Cooper's not going to be ready right off the bat. I don't know. I've also seen guys, like even young players, rookies – tear it up in that latter part of training camp, even if they missed a little bit, to the point where team felt really comfortable with them.
A lot of secondary questions entering camp. Today, get the first day. We see Quinyon Mitchell basically playing all three different roles there. We saw Maddox play some safety. We also saw James Bradberry only play safety today. He was running with the second team there. Any messaging for Bradberry that your second team safety, you're a long shot, buddy?
Yeah, I think you just said it. Yeah. Although you could argue being a second team safety on the Eagles means you're very close to being a starting safety given how thin they are, but they're not paying him. If you already are under the obvious impression that they're not paying James Bradberry all that money to be a number 3 corner, well, then they're also not paying him all that money to be a 3 or a 4 safety. So I'm going to stick with my prediction here that by the end of training camp, by the first week of the season, he's going to be with a different team. And it's probably going to be one of those trades where you get a 6 conditional 5, 5 conditional 4 if the guy plays a lot. But that's where I see this going. It's funny because I mentioned this the other day, but it's so perplexing to me that is Vic Fangio signing off on, hey, I want you to play safety? I mean, are you not surprised that Fangio doesn't want to at least look at him playing in that corner spot? You seem like you're not surprised. I mean, Vic Fangio can watch film like the rest of us, Mike. Vic Fangio's been in the game long enough to know 2 things. 1, he can watch the film and see for himself. And 2, that there is a business part of this game. You have a number 1, a first-round draft pick at that position with great athleticism, and that guy's got to get on the field. And you have a old cornerback who's coming off the worst year of his career. I mean, Vic is not going to – I can't imagine Vic's going to sit there and pound the table to have James Bradberry move back to corner after watching last year's film and knowing that he's got Quinyon Mitchell, Keely Ringo, Eli Ricks, Cooper DeJean. I mean, the guy knows he's got younger, more athletic players who he has to coach up and his staff has to coach up.
Yeah, it's – I guess from that perspective, but you also signed Bradberry because you thought he was good enough to get that contract, so now you're kind of stuck with it. You would think, hey, we gave this guy a lot of money because we thought he was pretty good. Maybe try him to see if he fits your scheme better than he did last year.
I mean, I don't think it's a scheme fit, Mike. They do a lot of things. They did a lot of things in Sean Desai's defense. I'm sorry, that was similar to Vic Fangio's, right? I mean, no matter what we saw last year, it doesn't take away from the fact that the Eagles were one of the slowest, least dynamic, least instinctive, least athletic cornerback / safety groups in the NFL. And putting James Bradberry back at cornerback with 33-year-old Darius Slay on the other side.
Yeah.
I can't imagine Vic Fangio is saying, I'd much rather have the experience than the dynamic athletic ability in today's day and age.
Jeff Mosher, Football at 4 from the Inside the Birds podcast. A lot to discuss as the Eagles are back at camp. Over-under I saw for Bryce Huff, 6.5 sacks. If that's the number, is it disappointing?
If he gets 6.5 sacks?
If he's 6.5, somewhere around there.
I don't like to be caught up just on sacks. I mean, if you had 24 quarterback hits and a bunch of hurries, but for the spirit of your question, yeah, that's a little low for the expectations.
Well, I would say, the Eagles go out and target him. He had 10 sacks last year. You let Hassan Reddick go. You're thinking you're going to get a guy who's going to get you, in that range, I would guess. And, I'm very interested to see what happens with Nolan Smith, what kind of role he has. Brandon Graham did confirm, as we all thought, that this is going to be his last year. McMullen brought up an interesting point earlier today. Brandon Graham in his last year, knowing that it's his last year, do you play him more knowing that he's not playing again anymore? Just empty the tank? Or does he just have a minimal role on this team?
Well, I mean, I think I would ask that question in reverse. If you take a 35-year-old player, defensive end, and start playing him 60% of the snaps or 50 or whatever in September, what are you getting out of him by the time you're in November and December, right? If his tank is that close to empty, why are you trying to empty it by October? If anything, you want to have him fresher for the end of the year. So I would imagine his role is similar to the way it was last year. You want to see him see it through to the Super Bowl because that's your expectations.
All right, Jeff, there's so much happening out there. You know, Cooper DeJean, the injury there. The other guy was Sidney Brown, placed on the physically unable to perform list. But any expectations for Sidney Brown for you this year?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, certainly, Mike. I mean, he's not coming back from an amputated leg. I mean, it's an ACL. I mean, I figured he was going to start. I think Rodney McLeod did this a couple of years ago, right? And there's a chance if he, winds up looking good that he might get activated. I think he can get activated off PUP before the end of camp. There's always the NFI rules and PUP rules. I'm pretty sure he can. So we'll see. I know there's that rule, like if you're still on it as you go into the season, then you got to miss a certain amount of time. But I would think if his progress is good and they want to see him in that third preseason game, that you might see him active before that. So we'll see.
Isaiah Rodgers was across from Darius Slay today. Will he be the guy across from him in Brazil?
Well, let's have some fun with this. If I were a handicapper, Mike, I'd probably put Quinyon Mitchell at a minus 150. And then I'd make Isaiah Rodgers I'd still put him in the plus, right? Probably plus 150. Is that fair?
So you think Mitchell and Slay will be the two that open the season in Brazil?
I think so. Now that's just sort of projecting. Obviously, what Mitchell has to show is that he can play in a defense and not just play complete off coverage like he played at Toledo.
Toledo, right?
Which is interesting that they had him running in the slot today a little bit, because sometimes you got to be up on guys in the slot, and he certainly has the long arms and the ability. So I'd put my money on him, but it's certainly not a given. He has to show that he can do it.
First day back for the Birds at training camp at the NovaCare Complex. Jeff Mosher and the Inside the Birds crew have plenty of coverage over at InsideTheBirds.com. Check out the podcast on all podcasting platforms. And every day, right here, Football at 4 on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. All right, Moshe, we will catch up with you on Monday.
Yes, sir. Have a great weekend.
All right, man. Moshe is back Monday. And, of course, Andrew is here tomorrow on the Sports Bash, and you can get all of Andrew's coverage. He has been at training camp for the Inside the Birds crew over at InsideTheBirds.com. I'm Mike Hill. This is the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, and streaming live video on the X platform at Mike Gill Show. Use the hashtag SBLive. Coming up, Knicks Nuggets are in the house. Nick Earnshaw joins me, the producer of The Locker Room and host of the Shift podcast. And we got all that coming up, including a look at the Phillies' loss today against the Twins. They were up 4-1, turned around 5-4. Twins with a walk-off against Gregory Soto, who had to come in the ninth. We'll get into that a little bit later on and throughout the show. I'm sure they'll come up in the Nuggets as well. Olympics start this weekend. The men and women Olympics. I'll give you a quick, the men are heavy favorites. Serbia is 11-1. They are the second shortest odds. Then Canada 12-1. France is 14-1. Germany 25-1. USA played South Sudan the other day, and that game was a close game. South Sudan is 500-1. They're going to play again in pool play, but there are actually two teams that have further odds than South Sudan does to win the gold.
I would still bet the spread of South Sudan versus USA in that pool game.
I don't know what
the spread is. I don't
It was
care.
43 the other day.
It was 43, probably less than that, but I'll still take it.
You think you'll take USA? You think they're going to win it by over 43?
No, I mean the other way. I'll take Sudan, South Sudan. I think they're.
You don't think USA
again.
is now going to be on high alert and know that game was so close that they're going to now put the foot on the gas?
At some point, LeBron is going to not be able to just turn it on every single game.
By the way, the two teams below South Sudan, Japan is 1,000-1 and Puerto Rico is 1,000-1. On the women's side, by the way, Team USA 1-12. Then France at 22-1.
Listen, there's only one team that can beat the U.S. women's national team. That's the WNBA All-Stars, baby.
They did beat them, didn't they?
Yes, they did.
Sports Bash coming back. Knicks Nuggets next here on 97.3 ESPN.
You're listening.
Is your vehicle stopping like it should? Does it squeal or grind when you brake? Don't miss out on summer brake deals at O'Reilly Auto Parts.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
With Mike Gill.
Never thought this radio stunt would catch on so big.
On 97.3 ESPN.
Nick's Nuggets are here. Nick Earnshaw, host of the Shift podcast. Check that out. And, of course, producer of The Locker Room, Saturdays on 97.3 ESPN. I'm Mike Gill. This is Nick's Nuggets. Let's see. Phillies lose today, by the way, 5-4. Kind of deflating to see that game. Now, the way they had to kind of figure out the bullpen there. Ends up with Soto on the mound in the ninth. Not ideal. And a 4-1 lead turns into a 5-4 loss in the ninth there, Nick Earnshaw. They lose 2 out of 3. Another series, that's a 4 straight series loss for the Phils.
Yeah, tough one today for the Phillies. I did the same thing. I looked down. I was like in and out, tuning into the game, and boom, it was 4-4 all of a sudden. I was like, whoa, what happened? Like, how did that happen? And, in the ninth inning, they go to Soto, right? Like, this is the problem. Alvarado's been struggling. They're not going to use him in the high leverage situations. They're moving to Soto, and look what happens. He goes in the ninth inning. The sequence starts off with a hit by pitch, then a sacrifice. Runner gets moved to third. And then on an infield single, they score and win the game. I mean, it's just as simple as that.
Well, you wonder, Nick,
if
you wonder if right now games like today have to shift the focus to the back end of the bullpen. Now, I'm not saying shift the focus as if it wasn't a focus, but does that become the main focus again? Is that they got to figure out what to do? Kerkering, Strahm, Hoffman, those 3 guys there, they're going to be key arms in the playoffs. So if you're saying that I'm not sure about those guys, you might have to get somebody to put it to top. Now, listen, Hoffman came in, did his job, got 2 strikeouts. Strahm had to clean up Kerkering's mess because Kerkering walked 2 guys. So it wasn't ideal.
No, it wasn't. Kerkering got into a little bit of a jam. Strahm had to try and clean it up of what Kerkering got into, and then the game's all of a sudden tied. And, this is the thing I've been screaming about. This is why you need to shore up the back end of the bullpen. Give Rob Thompson another option out of the pen because, you can't really trust Gregory Soto. He's not your lefty you want to have in the ninth inning. Strahm had to come in early in the game. Like, if this type of situation happens in the playoffs, you want a guy in the ninth that's going to lock it down and you're not really going to have to worry a ton. Soto, you're on pins and needles the entire time, every time he steps out on the mound. So this is clear. They got to go get another arm out of the bullpen, especially with the struggles of Alvarado today. If a situation arises similar to what happened in the game, this is why you're going to need another arm out of the bullpen. The Tanner Scotts of the world, Carlos Estevez. If you want to get another lefty in this situation, Tanner Scott would be a perfect, ideal match for the Phillies to try and lure him from Miami. There's a tons of names out there, but I think bullpen is 1 and right-handed bat is 1A. I think both are needed, but bullpen I think trumps the 1A in the right-handed bat.
Well, it's interesting because yesterday there was a report that they were talking about discussing was the word that was used in the report.
Yes.
2 starting pitchers, Jack Flaherty being one and Crochet being the other one. Those are 2 guys that I was a little surprised to hear both their names in the mix. So we'll see.
Yeah, and I'm glad it's a perfect segue, Mike, because that's one of my nuggets today. Talking about John Morosi's port and Flaherty and Crochet. Now, Crochet, here's the thing with him. You could make him like a bullpen type piece if you wanted to, because he's kind of at his innings limit. He's never pitched this much in his career ever. So there's a concern with his durability heading into the postseason and towards the end of the season if you're able to go get him. That's the concern with him. You could use him as a starter, obviously, but you don't know if he's going to run out of gas at some point because of the durability concern. And Flaherty, he's a rental. Do you really want to spend all of those prospects and the assets you do have on a rental for a starting pitcher when you have other needs? That's just, it was a very interesting report, but we've seen this before. I think Morosi also put it out that in, 2018, I can't remember exactly the year, that Dave Dombrowski went out and got David Price for Boston. So he's done this type of thing in the past, kind of shores up something they already are kind of loaded at and just adds on to it. He's done this before. So would it shock me? No, but I don't think they're going to go in that direction. I just don't think it's the right move at this point. You saw today, perfect example with the bullpen, why you need an extra arm there.
Well, listen, I'm not going to deny that they need another arm back there. I've been a guy who likes Kerkering a lot. He was disappointing today. He's had some control issues. We saw it last year in the playoffs. He had it again today. 2 walks, couldn't get out of the inning. He has an electric arm, but he just might not be able to command at this stage of his career. Hoffman obviously has had a really good year, but we question him and Strom whether they can do what they did in the first half of the season again in the second half of the season. I think that's something that has to be asked. And then Alvarado, man, I talked about him yesterday as he was one of these relief pitchers who have kind of hit that little wall. They're very inconsistent. Very few relief pitchers, the elites of the elites, are consistent from year to year to year. And I don't know that Jose Alvarado is an elite of the elites.
Yeah, and, today shows the confidence they have in him right now. They didn't want to go to him in the ninth, right? They want to use him in the lower leverage situations to build him back up. So like we've talked about, Josh and I mentioned on Monday, you go to a Soto in that situation instead of an Alvarado. That's usually a spot Alvarado is pitching in today. And Soto comes in and can't shut the door and keep the game tied. I mean, it starts the inning off with a hit by pitch. You're waiting for something like that to happen and to go wrong. So out of the gate of this All-Star break, there's concerns. And, I think going after a starting pitcher, wouldn't make sense. Your starting pitcher kept you in the game today. I mean, you were winning the game with your starting pitcher, and the bullpen came in and kind of messed things up. I like Kerkering. I like Strom. I like Hoffman. I think they'll be good enough for the playoffs, but having another arm in case something arises during that back end of a game, it'd be nice to have another guy who's at the top of the line, one of the better pitchers, better relievers. This year. I mean, I think that's really a clear need for this team because a game like that is you're supposed to win. You're supposed to win games like that, not fall apart. And that's what happened. The bullpen deteriorated towards the end. That's why it's so imperative that you have a guy that you can really trust in the 8th or 9th inning.
Yeah, I don't think the Phillies have a definitive lockdown back-end closer. Now, you could say they haven't had that guy the last couple of years. Now, they thought it was Kimbrel last year. He wasn't good enough. He didn't get the job done, but they did turn to him in that role. And now they don't have that. They don't even have a guy that they view as Kimbrel right now where, hey, you're the guy. They don't know. Like today, you went to Hoffman in the 8th.
Yeah.
So they don't know who the closer is, which tells you you don't have one.
No, they don't. And this was kind of the discussion a few months back when we were coming into the season, Mike. Remember, we were kind of having a discussion. They don't really have a lockdown closer. Maybe someone kind of builds themselves into that role, kind of like Kimbrel did, pitched himself into being that closer through the rest of the season, and then obviously ran out of gas and crumbled in the postseason. You don't want that to happen again. No one's really kind of taken the closer's role and grabbed it and said, this is mine. No one's really done that on this team. So I think if you go out and get a bona fide closer, a guy who can come in and shut the door, I think that would be very beneficial for the Phillies. You could just hand the ball to the guy in the 9th inning like in the old days and just say, hey, this is your inning. We have other guys to have in the high leverage situation.
Well, if you're looking at something that has failed this team in 2022, in the World Series in 2023, you could say not having a guy to close games out has been one of their issues. So if you're going to go into the playoffs with the same issue, are you going to end up with the same fate?
Yeah, it's going to continue to happen if you don't address it, right? I mean, this was the problem. They couldn't close games when their bullpen was really bad before they even made the postseason. Like the years leading up to that 22 season, they probably could have made the playoffs, but there were so many games they fell apart in the 7th, 8th, 9th inning that they weren't able to get into the postseason, and their record kind of showed that. Like, okay, if we had won those games, we'd probably be there. But because we couldn't have a guy in the back end of a game shut down those 8th and 9th innings, I should say, then you're not going to go anywhere. And this is the problem they're running into right now is they don't have that guy who could shut the door. No doubt it's your inning. You're going to be our guy to get those 3 outs at the end of the game or just keep the game tied. they don't have that. And, it's going to continue to happen, and you're going to run into these issues in big moments and big spots if it happens.
The point you make about the previous incarnations of the Phillies that didn't make the playoffs, you're right, because they blew so many saves in those years.
Yeah, those years leading up to 22, I mean, they probably should have made the playoffs, one or two of them, if they just had a decent bullpen and could save games. I mean, the offense was fine. You had Harper here. You had some decent starting pitching, but the bullpen was the problem. It's not to say their bullpen has been bad this year. It's been good, but you're seeing kind of what could happen in the postseason in tight games when you're playing these higher level teams. So it's going to be fascinating. The deadline, I can't wait. It's only a couple days away, Mike. The Nuggets next week are going to be exciting when the July 30th rolls around.
Yep, it'll be by this time next week. You might have a different look.
Yeah, I'm so locked into the deadline. Can't wait for that. All right, nugget number 2. Got to move to the Birds. Training camp pretty much started today with the first practice. And our question of the day is, what is the most concerning thing with the Eagles heading into this season? And for me, it's the defense, Mike. The defense is my biggest concern and my biggest what if. They have too many questions on the defensive side of the ball, whether it's being young on that side. They have questions at linebacker. That's not really somewhere where it's locked in, right? Like, I know they went out and got Devin White. You have Nakobe Dean, but Nakobe Dean's still a what if. It's mainly the Georgia Bulldogs, the Nolan Smiths of the world, the Jordan Davises. Are they going to be able to elevate their game this year, heading into a season where the defense lost guys like Fletcher Cox and those leaders on the defensive side? Brandon Graham's in his last year. And the depth isn't really there. They're leaning a lot on those young guys. And that is my biggest concern heading into this season. So what say you, Mike? Biggest concern out of all the problems and issues the Eagles have, what is number 1?
I got 1 and 1A would be the retiring of Jason Kelce and just imagining that the next guy is going to walk in there and that position's not going to have some issues that are going to rear its ugly head. Cam Jurgens might be a really good player, but he likely will not be better than Jason Kelce. You had so much stability at a position that if you have problems at center, you got problems on the whole offensive line generally. So for them to just assume that Jurgens is going to step in there and you're not going to have, it's going to be smooth sailing, I think that's a complete oversight this offseason. I think everybody just assumes Jurgens is going to step in there like nothing happened.
Yeah, I think people kind of just said he's going to roll in there. It's kind of been overlooked a little bit, right, with Jurgens for the most part. Like, hey, he's just going to kind of slide in there. He's been pretty good. You won't really see a difference without Jason Kelce. Well, I think you'll see a difference without Jason Kelce on the offensive line, but the offensive line is still really good. I don't think it'll be a major concern. I'm interested to see how it shakes out and if Cam Jurgens is the guy and, is decent enough to replace Kelce. I don't think he'll be better than him, but if he's good enough, I'm interested in that. The defense is concerning because they're so young. In so many different positions. But if you look at the macro of the defense, that's where the concern is. And Darius Slay, he's getting a little older. You saw him lose a little bit of a step last year. What's that going to look like? You add Isaiah Rodgers as well. He's been getting run with the first team. We've heard Quinyon Mitchell probably will be the guy. I know Jeff said it on Football at 4. He said it a few times before. So the defense is it's very concerning, but you do bring up a good point with Kelce. I think that's been overlooked this offseason.
That, and I say 1 and 1A, is the fact that you're losing Fletcher Cox. He played a lot of snaps last year. We're just assuming because they drafted Jalen Carter in the first round and Jordan Davis in the first round that you have 2 first-round picks that are just going to step in there. Who's taking all the Fletcher Cox snaps? Huh? I don't know about that.
Yeah, I don't know. The depth's concerning on the defensive line. For sure concerning for the Eagles. And I wonder if they go out and add another piece on the defensive line. Because remember, we've seen them rotate guys. The Super Bowl year, remember they brought in 2 players, and Ndamukong Suh being one of them. I can't remember who the other guy was. But they brought in 2 defensive tackles mid-season because they were rotating, keeping guys fresh. That's what the Eagles have done in the past. That's not the case with the way the roster is right now. You don't have the talent as much as you did in 2022. So that's concerning to me. With Fletcher Cox going too, it's like Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter after that. It's like, I don't know.
Well, yeah, Milton Williams in there, Tuiasosopo, a lot, some interesting names, but nobody that has kind of separated themselves at this point yet. But yeah, I mean, listen, the Lewis Fletcher, it was Linval Joseph, by the way, was the other.
That's it, Linval Joseph,
the other guy they brought in. But yeah,
Minnesota Viking.
Yep. To just assume you asked the two things to just assume that the two guys who retired are going to easily be replaced. I think that's far-fetched.
I think it is too, for sure. All right. Moving along, nugget number 3. I got to stick with Joel Embiid, and he's doing another podcast, Mike. He's doing another interview, another podcast. His trainers, Drew Hanlon's podcast. He was on there, and he was saying all types of stuff. He was laying down. He was on a couch, just kind of talking, shooting the breeze. It was pretty funny. He made a comment that he was the most hated player in the league. I get some people, and if you look around, across the league and you look on social media, yeah, I guess there is some dislike for Embiid, but this is the problem Josh and I were talking about. Why is he paying attention to that? He shouldn't know that he's the most hated on social media. You know what I mean? I think that was a little crazy, a little far-fetched. I don't think he's the most hated player in the league. He's too good. He's an MVP.
I think this kind of stems from the whole Troel, right? I mean, Troel Embiid and him trolling people, thinking he's the most hated, the process, what happened with the team. I think he kind of takes that whole, the Sixers lost, the league hated us, and therefore, I'm the most hated guy that's out there. And I think he just kind of plays that up.
I think it also kind of is partly from the Jokic and Embiid debates, right? Like, I think that plays a role into it. I know they get heated on social media, and I think that has a lot to do with it. And with what happened in the Knicks series, there was a lot of dirty stuff going on both sides, and Joel Embiid was always in the middle of it. I think that has something to do with where he's taken that kind of comment from.
I don't know if he really believes it or not, but
I don't know if he's if he's being Troel.
That's what I'm saying. The whole Troel Embiid is a persona that he, obviously likes to kind of play around with people. Oh, I'm the most hated guy in the league. People were hating him because he decided to play for Team USA, right? Yeah. I mean, the French basically turned their back on the guy after they, gave him citizenship over there, and he decided not to play for them.
Yeah, I think someone was they were walking up and someone was yelling at him to give his passport back or something because he didn't join their team while Team USA was walking up. But again, Joel Embiid doing another podcast, saying things, being in the headlines once again. I mean, he just did that New York Times interview not too long ago where there was some stuff in there he said that made some headlines about, being in the GOAT conversation. Now he's talking about being the most hated player in the league. I guess everyone's just against Joel at this point, but I just don't think that's the case.
Maybe not. I don't know. I mean, listen, Embiid is a quirky guy, I guess you could say. Peculiar.
He's an interesting guy. That's to say the least. But yeah, he's on another podcast. He said some comments about Jason Tatum as well, about him being on a super team and Boston being a super team. And he also said, I'm paraphrasing, that if he were to go 5 for 20, the Sixers lose. And if it's the opposite for Jason Tatum. So he's kind of taking a shot at his Team USA teammate too, Mike.
I don't know if he's taking a shot at his teammate more than that he's saying that if Embiid has a bad game, he doesn't have a good enough supporting cast. Tatum can have a bad game. His supporting cast is good enough for Tatum not to have his best day.
But the context was he was also, bagging on super teams. So, the Sixers are a little bit of a super team now. You got Tyrese Maxey, you got Paul George, you've added some pieces. Now I don't know if he can have that excuse heading into next year. If the team
maybe not
out.
Now, but in the past, maybe.
In the past, I give him, 100% in the past. The roster construction has been brutal for Embiid. But this year he might not have the same kind of attitude after the season and on a podcast next offseason.
Yep. All right. Well, hey, listen, Embiid, get off the podcast, get off the couch and start, maybe running.
Start cooking. Start cooking for Team USA and, hopefully next year for the 76ers. We'll find out. All right. That's my final nugget number 3. A 3-pack for you today on this Wednesday afternoon.
All right, very good. A little Knicks Nuggets for you here on a Wednesday edition of the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. Now, how was Cooperstown?
It was a good time. We had a great time. And I found out, now, I have a relative who played for the Philadelphia A's. I saw the entire museum part this time. he was also mentioned in one of the blurbs for the 1929 World Series on one of the displays. So that I found out this year. Something new every year, it feels like.
Well, new people get inducted every year.
Yeah. No, well, I'm saying, obviously. But I'm saying I learned something new because I didn't get to see the entire museum part last year because we were running low on time. But I got to see that, which was pretty cool for my family, to say the least.
Very cool. Yeah, well, I know Cooperstown's a great little trip. It's it's hard to fit the whole museum in one day.
Yeah, that was because we wanted to see all the plaques last year for the most part. So we got to the second and third floor this year of the museum and all the displays and memorabilia this time around. So that was pretty cool. It's the best place to go. If you're a baseball fan, it's a must see. It's all baseball all day long.
All right. Knicks Nuggets are back tomorrow right here on the Sports Bash. Thanks, Nick.
All right, Mike. I'll talk to you.
All right. There's Nick Earnshaw. And of course, you can check out his podcast, The Shift, and listen to him Saturdays in the locker room right here on 97.3 ESPN. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. We got a lot to do still between now and the end of the show. And, of course, you guys can be a part of it. 609-403-0973 on the text board. 609-403-0973 on the text board. Let us know, are you concerned about the Phillies? And as Nick said, what's your biggest concern about the Eagles as they enter camp? We got a lot of Eagles stuff coming up for you today on the show still as they finish up their first practice today at the NovaCare Complex. Earlier, the Phillies lost 5-4 to the Twins. They've now lost 4 straight series. More Sports Bash on the way. 5 o'clock hour, we'll dive into the biggest Eagles stories from today's camp. You don't want to miss some of the stuff that Jalen Hurts had to say. You'll hear audio from him coming up in 10 minutes from now on the Sports Bash live on 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, streaming live video on the X platform at Mike Gill Show. Hey, this Friday we're celebrating 15 years of the Sports Bash. And most Fridays throughout the summer. This Friday, we're going to be live at Giuliano's in Egg Harbor Township. It's our first stop of Happy Hour Fridays. Every Happy Hour Friday, we're going to celebrate 15 years of the Sports Bash. So stop out and have a beer with the show. Enter to win tickets to see the Smashing Pumpkins and Green Day show at Citizens Bank Park. We're giving tickets away every hour. So come out, enter to win those tickets. Every hour is going to randomly start giving tickets away to people. 15 years of the Sports Bash, $3.50 Bud Light drafts, $4 neutral vodka seltzers. That's all this Friday. Everyone's welcome to come. Happy Hour Friday. Stop out and see us. Giuliano's in EHT.
Jersey. This is the Sports Bash with Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. Now live from inside the Ocean Casino Resort Studio, here's Mike Gill.
5 o'clock, Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN. I'm Mike Gill. We've got another hour for you, hanging out. Phillies lose today 5-4. So I want to quickly touch on that Phillies loss, right? Because the way the game went is interesting. If you're trying to read into this at all, I'm sure people look at it and say, well, what the heck's the guy doing? He went to Soto in the 9th. Well, unfortunately, he went to Soto in the 9th. I don't think this is because of his level of importance of the pitchers, right? He went to Kerkering in the 7th. Unfortunately, Kerkering didn't do his job, which forced Strahm to have to clean up the Kerkering mess, and then Hoffman to come in and basically go in the 8th, to which Soto was the guy that was left over. I don't think we read much into like, hey, he really thinks Soto's the guy, or he likes Soto, or Soto's the closer. He's going to try Soto. I think this is a byproduct of Kerkering just not doing his job, and that basically knocked everything off the track there. So I'm not reading too much into him going to Soto in that moment there.
Yeah, I'm not reading into Soto coming in. You know, for me, Mike, the larger question is,
where's Alvarado there?
Well, that's one question for sure. That was part of the question. Why not go to Alvarado? Why are you going to Soto there? You could ask that question. You could ask the question, was it necessary to go with Hoffman in the 8th? Could you could have gone someone else in the 8th inning and then put Hoffman in the 9th? But then the other element is, does this bring us back to the whole they need to trade for more bullpen help conversation. Because
obviously, yeah. I think we're all getting to the root of what's going on here. Hey, look, it's like anything in sports. A basketball team, you win 55 games in the regular season, and then you get to a playoff series, and you're like, man, we're just not good enough. Well, You won 55 games. Yeah, but once we got to that next level of competition, we got more exposed. Yep. And this is what happened. Same in football. Like, hey, you had a really solid season. You won 11 games. Then you got to a playoff wild card game, and you found out, hey, this thing has been a problem for us all season long, and we were good enough to win 11 games because of it, but we weren't good enough to beat the really good teams.
Right.
And then, same with a baseball team. You win a bunch of games because of depth to your lineup, or they have a lot of pitching depth, and you're able to kind of pile up a lot of wins. But ultimately, things start to unravel, and you start to see more and more the more that teams see you. And what you're seeing now is, look, the Phillies have gotten to this point because Jeff Hoffman and Matt Strahm had, let's be honest, out of their mind all-star seasons. Nobody thought that Matt Strahm and Jeff Hoffman were all-stars.
No.
And they make the all-star team, deservingly so, because they had tremendous first halves of the season.
They earned it.
So we can't assume they're going to keep that up. And Kerkering, by the way, he had a borderline all-star first half of the season. I mean, if Orion Kerkering made the all-star game, I don't know that anybody would have complained. If you're going to put Strahm or Hoffman there, you could make an argument that you could put Kerkering on there as well. He was right there with those guys for most of the first half of the season. Now, he doesn't pitch in the higher leverage situations, but in 38 games for Kerkering, his ERA is up to 2.39 now. But if you went right before the All-Star break, he was right in line with Strahm, who's 185, and Hoffman, who's had an exceptional season, by the way. Jeff Hoffman, is 105. So those two guys have been outstanding. But Kerkering's been really, really good. Here's the thing. He has never shown the consistency yet, nor has Hoffman, nor has Strahm. So that's the big question here. Can those guys show the consistency, or are you starting to see that they lack the consistency? And today was a day where Kerkering didn't have it, and therefore, because he didn't have it, I think it kind of took your bullpen. Like the plan, I imagine, I don't know this, I haven't heard Rob Thompson. I have not heard him after the game if he was asked about this, but you would imagine Kerkering would have pitched the 7th, Strahm the 8th, and then Hoffman the 9th. Well, because Kerkering walked 2 guys, they had to get him out. Strahm finishes the inning, and now mind you, Strahm also pitched last night as well, so I didn't think they wanted to bring him back another inning. The question I guess you can ask is, in the 8th inning, why Hoffman there? I'm imagining, and I don't know this because, the game is on behind me, but I don't know who was up to bat. I can go look for you. For the Twins in the 8th, Hoffman is in, and it's Jeffers, Lee, and Julian are the hitters there. So I guess they're right-handed hitters. So they decide to go with the righty, Hoffman, which is what generally everybody would have done in that situation. And the question, I guess, is, are they down on Alvarado? Did anybody ask Rob after the game why they didn't go to Alvarado there? Because he did not pitch last night. I would imagine he was available. That I do not know. But that would be my one question. Why Soto, not Alvarado, in the 9th today? Now, listen, you can make the argument that you didn't want to see Alvarado either the way that he's been going. So let's not act like, why did he go to Soto? Because if he went to Alvarado there, and Alvarado ends up, coughing up the lead, you'd probably say, why'd they go to Alvarado? He's been terrible. So, this stems from Kerkering not getting the job done, which is disappointing. Because Kerkering's a guy that I have a lot of expectations for, and I think he's got the best stuff on the team. And it's been a little. I mean, listen, he's been great this year for the most part, but you want him to get that out. I mean, get out of that inning. You want him to win that inning. You want that to be a clean, quick inning in the 7th, so he can get to Strahm in the 8th, and that Hoffman can come in and pitch the 9th, and then we're not having this discussion possibly. So that would be my take on that. Right? Is why not Alvarado? Was Rob Thompson asked about that today? Was he asked, hey, why did you go to Soto in the 9th instead of Alvarado?
So the only quote I have right now online from any of the media I found so far is Thompson was asked about just Gregory Soto struggling in that inning and recently. And Thompson was answered and said basically that Soto is not attacking the zone like he was in the last 10 of 11 outings. So he said they got to sit down and talk with him and make sure he's still got his confidence level. So they didn't ask him about why Soto. They asked about Soto struggling.
Well, I turned around at one point, okay, and I saw Soto throw a pitch, and it was a ball. And I saw him kind of frustrated, like looking up to body language, in other words. Mm-hmm. His body language was suggesting frustration for his inability to throw strikes.
Right. And at that point, if you have a pitcher who is mentally, this is something that Dave Gallagher has talked to you about numerous times, Mike, about how the mental side of the game is almost more important than anything else for these baseball players. If you are mentally struggling with something, it probably is going to continue to be a problem until you psychologically get a handle of whatever the issue is.
Yeah, well, and this goes back to, Alvarado. Is he having command problems because psychologically he's starting to listen, it's being a relief pitcher and having command is it's like playing 18 holes of golf. You go out on the golf course, you spend a pretty penny to play a good course. And if you're spending the money, you want to perform. You don't want to go out there and hack it up and basically be like,
be like me.
Or me. And that first shot you take of the day sets the tone almost for the whole day sometimes. Right. You might rip one off the first tee and feel pretty confident. 4 holes in, you might be, I just can't focus this much. I just can't be this mentally sharp for a game that I'm not a professional.
Right.
And that's a relief pitcher. It's almost like every night they get called on, it's a different hole on the golf course.
Correct.
So I don't know. Look, the Phillies have a Jose Alvarado problem. He blew the save. What was that? The other night against the Pirates. 4 of the 5 hitters get on base. He blew a pair of 3-run leads. So it's one of those things where I don't know what to think about Alvarado. I remember a couple of years ago when they sent him down. I said, listen, if you're depending on Jose Alvarado to be one of your guys, you're not a World Series team. He then proved us all wrong, came back from the minors and basically shut us all up.
Yeah.
And became, for a while there, he might have been the best left-handed relief pitcher in baseball. His velocity doesn't seem to be a problem. He's still, hitting 100.
Yeah, he's still cranking it.
So I think, to me, this is more the stuff's there, the velocity's there. That's something Rob Thompson said the other night. But he did say he's not getting much swing and miss. So he's, and that's saying that his stuff's a little flat and that his command's not there. Those are the things that bother me. If you can't throw strikes, listen, the world we live in, the baseball world we live in right now, right? Everybody loves velo. Velo, 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 velo. If your velo can't go over the plate, your velo is a waste of velo, right? It's a waste of velo to not be able to throw strikes. And right now you got Alvarado and Soto who struggle with command. Both of them throw incredibly hard. But let's be honest. How many times do you hear somebody say, well, this guy's throwing too slow? I need a guy that throws harder. No. That's the funny part. You say never. That's one of the problems. Some people will say, this guy doesn't throw hard enough. I can only hit guys who throw really hard. So if everybody's throwing really hard, why is everybody trying to throw really hard?
Right. It seems like it's counterintuitive.
Yeah. So we got some text messages here. 609-403-0973. Thompson said lower stress situation for Alvarado and higher stress for Soto. I'd have to hear that. I want to hear how that kind of came out. Mike, you might have been saving Alvarado for the 10th. That's not a good strategy. Mike, how do you feel about Marsh? He can't hit lefties today. Wasn't his first fielding flub. It's not like he's slugging machine against righties. I'm not sure why he gets so much fan love. Mike in Northfield. Mike, I agree. I'm not the biggest Marsh guy in the world. I do understand its importance to the clubhouse, and that is a thing in baseball. Like, you can't have, look, if your best player is telling everybody else they suck, then your team is going to follow that best player.
Correct.
And be not a team. You can't have the best player on the team telling the worst guy that he's the worst. Marsh is important because he keeps that clubhouse together. But I do agree with you. I don't need him in the lineup. I don't understand these people who say he's got to play every day. And his fielding, that ball today has to be caught. Marsh is one of those guys always highly popular. I don't think Marsh can hit all that much. I don't, I'm not excited when Marsh comes to the plate. He's just an average guy to me. So to me, he'd be expendable as a player, but not as expendable as a clubhouse guy. But that's why he gets so much fan love, Mike.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, we have heard multiple times, whether it was, Tim Kirchner, we played the audio a couple of weeks ago, Dave Dombrowski talked about it in interviews. There is something unique and special to the chemistry on this Phillies team, which, great, it's fine that Brandon Marsh is part of that chemistry, but it doesn't mean that he has to be the only option in left field.
Well, they don't have another option.
And that's another problem here. They got to have another option.
Listen, part of the reason why this team had gotten off to the start that it did is because Marsh got off to it. You're looking at why is this team out to the start that it got? Look at the guys who are doing what they did. Ranger Suarez far exceeded expectations.
Yes.
Christopher Sanchez far exceeded expectations. Matt Strahm far exceeded expectations. Jeff Hoffman far exceeded expectations. There's not a guy who thought Suarez, Sanchez, Hoffman, or Strahm were going to be all-star pitchers this year, correct?
Nobody.
I can't imagine that anybody out there said, you know what? Matt Strahm is going to give you an all-star first half. Christopher Sanchez is going to be an all-star. Ranger Suarez is going to be an all-star. And Jeff Hoffman's going to be an all-star.
The only guys on this team that you thought could be all-stars were Zach Wheeler, Bryce Harper, Trey Turner, Kyle Schwarber. Everyone else, it was kind of like a shoulder shrug. Or they were odds plus 50,000.
So those four guys right there all made the all-star game. So that's part of the reason why you're out to the 9-game lead that you have. Now, you go to, why else are we there? Well, Alec Bohm, 71 RBI, all-star season. Did anybody pencil Alec Bohm in to be an all-star this year?
No.
Probably not. Trey Turner, while he was hurt for a while, is hitting .338 with a .385 on base. He's got 13 homers. He has been magnificent. He was not magnificent in the first half of last year.
Correct.
One of the reasons why this team got off to a really good start was Brandon Marsh got off to a really good start. That got them out of the gates early. All these guys got off to really, really hot starts. Well, Brandon Marsh is starting to slow down a little bit. Brandon Marsh is 250 at the plate, 330 on base. He's just an average guy, right? So I think Mike's question is fair about Marsh. I don't know what you do about it because he's a very important guy in the clubhouse, and that does matter. The one thing is, can you find a guy to play left field every day and then put Marsh in a platoon with Rojas? Does that make them better? Or do you want to keep Marsh in left field and keep him in a platoon with somebody who plays left field? That's where I think the Phillies have to see what's on the market.
Yeah, as of right now, I am more comfortable with Marsh in left field than center because of these defensive foibles, missteps, whatever you want to call them, that he seems to keep having a tendency to make.
The one today I thought was pretty bad. I don't know. It's a tough angle watching on television whether or not he could have got to that ball or should have got to that ball.
It's not the first time it's happened this year, though. Remember, he's had multiple situations in center field. 2 in the same homestand a couple weeks ago where he misjudged a ball in the air, ran the wrong direction, and couldn't get to a ball. Or he misplays it on a bounce, or he tries to dive for a ball and misreads it. Like, I don't know. Maybe he needs new contacts or something. I don't know. Maybe he needs an eye examination. But there's something obviously off right now with his ability to read the ball in the air the last several weeks.
Well, it's a thing that the Phillies have 6 days to figure out. They have 6 days to decide. Is Brandon Marsh, well, let's say this. They've already decided Brandon Marsh is not an everyday player.
Right.
But they want to decide whether or not is it necessary that Marsh has a big role in this team?
It's a good question. I don't know if it is necessary, because if he's hurting your team more than he's helping, then the clear answer is no. And I don't think that putting him in a platoon role diminishes his value in the locker room, right?
Probably not. I think Marsh is a good enough locker room guy that he can handle not playing.
Yes.
And the players would still, whatever he does to make the team come together, for him
it almost feels like the Sirianni conversation.
Yeah. Whatever he does to make the team come together, he can be that guy as a reserve player.
Can you imagine how that conversation would go? Remember the reporter who asked Nick Sirianni, what do you do? Who was that, Zach Berman? Months ago?
Yeah, I forget. It might have been Tim McManus.
Or was one of those guys. It was like, so what do you do if you're not calling plays?
Right.
Can you imagine someone asking you Brandon Marsh, like, so what do you even do in the locker room?
that would conversation be pretty rough. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. Streaming live video on the X platform at Mike Gill Show. Listen to every Eagles game all season with Merrill Reese and Mike Quick. It all starts Friday night, August the 9th, with the Eagles and the Ravens kicking off the preseason right here on 97.3 ESPN. Eagles training camp begins today at the NovaCare Complex. If you missed football at 4, John McMullen, go to our YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button, listen to McMullen on the Sports Bash. His thoughts on day number 1 of the Eagles at camp. Yesterday, Jeff Kerr from CBS Sports was on the show, giving some thoughts on the Eagles camp battles. Now that they're underway, that's all on our YouTube channel. Just hit the subscribe button to get them sent right to your phone. I am Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash. And when we come back, we got today's Big 3.
The Sports Bash with Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
All right, 527. Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN. We'll get to the Big 3 in a second. Phil's lose today, 5-4. They've lose the series. Lost 3 straight series now. And they'll try to pick it up against one of the best teams in baseball. Cleveland Guardians are in town. Phil's come back home. Been away since the Oakland series. They'll play the Guardians, who are 60-40. Phillies are 64-38. But the Guardians will be in town, and after that, they'll play the Guardians this weekend.
Then the Yankees.
Then the Yankees during the All-Star break. Not the All-Star break, the trade deadline.
The week leading up, yeah.
So that game will be the Cleveland series, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. They will play the Yankees. By the way, the Yankee game on Monday is on Amazon Prime.
Oh, but geez.
I'm just giving people a heads up.
Do you have Amazon Prime?
I do.
Okay.
I do.
I was just double checking. I can't keep up with who has what streaming and not the other, and I lose track, honestly.
Yep, I do have Amazon Prime, so I'm ready to go for that.
You still have Apple TV? You still hanging on with that?
I do. I'm still holding on. Got to finish the Ted Lasso.
you're making progress.
We've come so far.
You've come this far, you might as well finish the journey.
Yeah. Mike, do you think Thompson is managing the way he is because they have a 9-game lead in the division? I actually talked about that before I left, Dan. I do think Thompson is managing because he has a 9-game lead in the division. Yes, I do think that is part of it. Like, hey, we have a 9-game lead in the division. Let's see if this guy can handle closing a game out. He has the ability to make those decisions like that. Yep, I do think so.
I think at the end of the day, Thompson also understands that it's a 162-game season and that you got to go somebody in those situations. And sometimes you're just making your best assessment, right, Mike? It's not always an exact science. Sometimes you just have to go in and say, this is what I think is best in this situation. And then sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, well, listen, he doesn't have faith in Alvarado right now. I think he wants to give him a little mental break, so he went to Soto.
Now he's losing faith in Soto.
Nice.
So now you're running out of guys. Mike Barr, Big 3 today being brought to you by Boxing Insider Promotions. It's the boxing event of the summer this Friday, July 26th at Tropicana Atlantic City showroom. Where undefeated junior middleweight Justin Figueroa is back in action, along with Absegamian High School graduate Bruce Selden Jr. and top-rated heavyweight Otto Whalen are all in action on the jam-packed card at Tropicana Atlantic City showroom. Again, Friday, July 26th, 7 p.m. is the scheduled time for the first fight. Get tickets now at Ticketmaster.com or, Mike, people can tune in to Game Night tonight and find out how they can win a pair of tickets for this Friday's fights. Again, Tropicana showroom in Atlantic City. Boxing Insider Promotions bringing you the boxing event of the summer.
Yeah, a lot of buzz about that.
A lot of buzz.
Well, they were here about a month ago, and there was a lot of people talking about the fights up there.
Listen, they had a great turnout for the first Boxing Insider Promotions event. I was there, and even the people from Tropicana were like, this is impressive, the turnout that we have here. And they immediately re-signed them up to come back again. And so now you double down, right? It's
double
not,
disco.
You
double everything.
Double whammy. Double dating.
You'd think I would have that thing memorized by now.
I know, so would I, but I messed up too. Yeah. No, but they have 2 South Jersey High School graduates this time round. Last time it was just Justin Figueroa, and now it's Figueroa and Selden Jr. And then, for those who don't know, Otto Whalen, Mike, he's only ever lost to 2 people in his entire professional boxing career. And they were both decision victories, Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury. So, pretty legitimate guy in the main event
no doubt.
Of the fight card this Friday.
Yep. I listen, good fights. I know Larry does a great job.
Mike, I want to get to some of the audio we didn't get to earlier because at the beginning of the media availability for Jalen Hurts today, he was starting to get asked the question about him and Sirianni's relationship, right? Mm-hmm. And Hurts turned to them and said, let me stop you right there and let me just open with a statement. And here is part of what Hurts said this morning about himself, Sirianni, the Eagles, and the whole kit and caboodle.
I trust Mr. Lurie, I trust Howie, I trust Coach Sirianni to lead us in that right direction. And I know there are different roles in place. Everybody has different responsibilities. There may be more demands from some than others, but I think to win championships, to be the team we want to be, everyone has to buy into their role and everyone has to be fully committed to doing their part and helping the team. And so I'm excited to go on that journey. You know, I feel like for me as a player, as a leader, everything that we went through last year, I just feel like I'm equipped to handle whatever's to come.
The comment he makes about some people, I have to hear it again, but he says something about some people put more emphasis than others do.
Right. Yeah. Some people, put more, they basically place more value
on emphasis, maybe. I don't know what the exact phrasing was, but I thought that who's he referring to there?
I think he's referring to the media. I think that
I don't know about that. Let me hear that again. Up to that point, I'll tell you when.
I trust Mr. Lurie, I trust Howie, I trust Coach Sirianni to lead us in that right direction. And I know there are different roles in place. Everybody has different responsibilities. They may be more demands from some.
Right there. There might be more demands from some. Is he saying there's more demands from some than others? Is Sirianni not demanding enough? Is that like the implication there? I don't know. I'm just saying, like, hearing that kind of perked my ears up a little bit.
I mean, I assumed he was referring to the media because, there was such a backlash to his comment the last time he talked to the media about him and Sirianni and people reading too much or not enough into it, however you want to interpret his reaction to the previous question about his relationship. And, I think that people sometimes just want to find something wrong with this guy. Saquon Barkley mentioned that with Diana Rossini about how, he looks at Hurts and is like, people misunderstand this guy, right? So there's a part of me that wonders, is Hurts kind of acknowledging, look, people want me to be something, want me to do something, and it's not my responsibility.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is the discourse that happens when you have a situation like last year where you have a result and you don't know how you got the result. That is what happens, is questions arise, and there's nothing tangible as to why it happened. That's the thing to map out, to point out. There is no definitive reason why the Eagles just fell off the cliff last year. So it has to be something else. Maybe the relationship. Maybe there was a disconnect. That kind of stuff.
Here's the audio from Saquon Barkley when he spoke to Diana Rossini that I was referring to when he talked about Jalen.
A lot of people have this view of him, and I think they're wrong. He's a great leader. He works his ass off. Right there, and those two things to me are the most important thing. A good leader it's not just vocal, right? Everybody leads in different ways. But him is you're Jalen. It's the truth.
I will say, Saquon saying that, I don't know if it holds as much weight yet.
Because he hasn't been here long enough?
Hasn't been here in season when there's a loss, when things are not going well. That would be I'm not to discount it. I'm just saying, he works his ass off. Okay, yeah, we all, I don't think anybody questions that about Jalen.
Well, it's the whole, you've mentioned this before, Mike, about how you talked earlier about Cam Jurgens, about how he's replacing Jason Kelce. Well, it's great that the Eagles are confident, but what happens in the middle of a close game? Is he still able to do the job? So it's a similar vibe to this. Saquon is only seeing Jalen in the offseason. He hasn't seen him in game in a tough, tight game situation.
Yeah. Well, and again, what happens when they lose 2 in a row? What happens this time around if it starts to fall apart?
Right. Then what happens? Does Jalen pout? Does he not talk to media? What is the next domino to fall if it doesn't go well again?
Yeah.
And I think, naturally everyone's assuming that if it doesn't go well, they're going to fire Sirianni. But I think they're also going to ask questions about Jalen Hurts, because Jalen Hurts was an MVP runner-up a couple of years ago. And now this would be 2 straight years where he did not play up to, I don't want to say expectation, because no one even agrees on what the expectation is for this guy. But I think doesn't play up to a level that gives you consistent winning football. Is that fair?
Possibly. We don't know what to expect from Hurts. He was a mediocre quarterback. He was an MVP level quarterback, and then last year I don't even know what the heck to say. I don't know how to explain what he was last year.
Well, it's weird because he actually had more rushing touchdowns and more passing touchdowns last year than his MVP season. So it's like people have this assumption that he had a bad year. Well, the numbers don't say he had a bad year. The numbers said that he was still a pretty good quarterback, but there is a perception, because they lost 6 out of 7 games, and because we love to blame the quarterback sometimes for that stuff, that Jalen's fault. When you really go down game by game, all 6 of those 7 games, he did not play badly. He actually played well in the Cardinals game, for example. It was the defense that played atrocious.
Everything was atrocious. The defense had just holes all over the place, and the offense was clunky. He was a part of that clunky offense, that's for sure.
By the way, Jalen also made a very before we get to that, I do want to bring you what Howie said about Jalen, because Howie expressed his confidence in the Eagles franchise quarterback.
I've been fortunate to be with Jalen now coming on my 4th year. I think he's got tremendous energy, tremendous work ethic. You know, just like all of us, everything that he feels like he can continue to work on, he will do. You know, this is a guy that obviously has brought us tremendous success since he's been our starting quarterback, has played at a tremendously high level. I have tremendous confidence in him that whatever he has to do to continue being an MVP candidate, he will do.
Listen, I think they're just trying to get through this phase of early training camp of what happened last year. Is Jalen Hurts not getting along with Nick Sirianni? All that stuff.
They're trying to be like, can we just move on? Can we just talk about something else, anything else? I mean, they literally made the comment, Howie and Sirianni joked at one point about how, you know, they've been looking so forward to this training camp, and you got to think, well, yeah, because you're tired of hearing about it last season.
Well, exactly. Like, get this thing off the ground, get the battle started, let's go. I'd rather talk about, like, for them, who the starting right guard's going to be.
Speaking of the starting right guard, Nick Sirianni was asked about that and confirmed that Tyler Steen is going to be the first man getting the shot at that.
You know, obviously we'll see as we go, and looking forward to today. And, you know, Tyler will start out there at the right guard position today as we start. But, you know, we'll see how that goes.
Not exactly the most ringing endorsement for Tyler Steen. More of like a, you know, indifferent, hey, you know, he's going to, you know, be in there today and we'll see how it goes. That's not the most ringing endorsement, Mike.
Yeah, that he'll get the first crack at it. I mean, I think going back to what we just said, they'd rather talk about the battles than what happened last year in the relationships. I think it's pretty clear that right guard is up for grab, but that Steen will get the first crack at it. That's not like crazy news here. I don't think this is like there's a definitive guy that stands out.
It still reminds me of 2017 when you had like 3-4 guys coming in here for left guard trying, you know, Chance Warmack. It was, you know, Isaac Seumalo. It was Stefan Wisniewski. And you had this perception of how it was going to go, and then it didn't go the way a lot of people expected. By the end of the year, it was Stefan Wisniewski playing left guard in the Super Bowl, right? You know, next to Vaitai at left tackle. So to me, it's got a similar vibe to that in that you have the guy that we think can be the starter, Tyler Steen. You have this enigma, which is Mekhi Becton. You have you brought in Matt Hennessy, right? He's a guy that can play center and guard. And you signed who's the veteran? Matt Sharping. So you have 4 guys you could potentially be the right guard.
Yeah, I've talked about that a lot. McMullen brought it up today. Is you do have various levels of experience that you can plug into that spot. Guys who have started, guys who have been journeymen, young players, and then a total wild card in Mekhi Becton. So I think that right guard spot stays. You know, Sirianni confirms Steen gets the first shot, but nothing he said there is like, whoa, that's a ringing. I think it's open. That's why you brought in veteran right guards, because you're not sure what Steen can offer you.
Sirianni was also asked about Becton. For those who don't know, Mekhi Becton got the first team reps at left guard today because Landon Dickerson has a toe laceration, which I feel like that could be a podcast story for somebody's podcast out there. How does Landon Dickerson get a toe laceration so he can't play left guard on day one of training camp? If those who don't know, Mekhi Becton had a rough day because apparently he ate too much before he got out in the humidity on the field. He had to run to the sideline and deal with it on the sideline, and then he came back in. So, but here was Sirianni before all that happened, talking about not just Becton, but the importance of guys like him on this team being able to be, you know, guys who can play multiple positions on the line.
Versatility is going to be key for guys. And so, you know, we'll see as camp goes along. But, Makai's going to have to be able to do both, and James is going to have to be able to do both. And so looking forward to seeing some of that with those guys. And but like I said, that's fluid as it goes on. You'll see some of that out here today.
Sirianni acknowledging, kind of what you and John McMullen talked about earlier today, Michael, on the Sports Bash, that, the value of these guys is not going to be them playing a specific position. It's going to be them being able to play every position needed of them.
Well, we talked about this with Mosher at Football at 4. Is Becton is a guy who has played tackle, but when they signed him, they wanted to see if he could play guard. And of course, Mosher had mentioned, his size, 6'7". He's an awful big guy to play guard. So does he project to play there, or is he so talented that they want to try to find a spot for him on the field?
I will say Dickerson is 6'6", and Brandon Brooks was 6'5". So it's not like the Eagles haven't had, some big boys on the interior of the line before. And maybe it's a way to protect Cam Jurgens, right?
Well, Jurgens to me is probably the biggest question of everything here. I mean, I talked about this during Knicks Nuggets. Mm-hmm. He asked me what my biggest concern was about the Eagles. There's other concerns, but how do you replace Jason Kelce? Center is arguably the most important position on the entire field, and you had one of the best of all time there for 12 years. You don't just think the new guy's going to come in there and you're not going to miss a beat. I have a hard time with that.
For those who didn't hear it before, this was Wink Martindale talking about what makes Jason Kelce so special. This was on the GM Shuffle podcast.
Kelce's a different animal. To me, he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. We've become friends over the years because he could see it, and he studies it. He works at it as a center. With most centers, it's not that way. You can move late, show things late where they can't see it after they've made their checks.
Mm-hmm. And it's not saying that Cam Jurgens cannot put in the same work that Jason Kelce did, but Kelce had over a decade of experience already under his belt every single year, right? Cam Jurgens, this is ground floor. He's starting at the very beginning, and sure, Kelce can hang around the building, and the joke that Lane Johnson had was that Jason Kelce basically lives in the coach's locker room now because he can't go in the players' locker room. But Kelce can be around all at once, but he's not on the field. So your Cam Jurgens question,
he's going to be around a lot,
valid.
though. I think
he is going to be around a lot, but I don't think that him being around a lot solves the fact that he won't be on the field.
No question. I mean, how much did him being around last year, how much did him, Jurgens, being around Kelce last year prepare him for this? I don't know. I mean, that's something that you just don't know until the games start. Like, you could say, hey, this guy Jurgens, he was handpicked. He's the guy. It's going to work out. That, to me, is a huge question mark.
Mike, before we get out of here, if I can switch topics for a moment, I want to get your thoughts on this whole NBA rights deal thing, because the NBA has announced that they are going with the ESPN, NBC, and Amazon packages, and TNT Sports is now threatening to sue after they claim that they matched, but the NBA says that their match of the Amazon offer basically wasn't good enough. It wasn't what they were looking for.
This is a clear... The matching of TNT, Warner Brothers Discovery, which is inside the NBA, Charles Barkley, that whole crew, they had a matching provision in their deal. They elected to match the deal. They chose the Prime deal. Well, the NBA is saying what you're matching isn't matching. That's a streaming service. We want that C package. See, there's an A package, which is the ESPN ABC package.
Correct.
That has the finals and most playoff games and more games. Yeah. Then the B package is the NBC package.
Right.
And then the C package is the lesser package, which is Amazon Prime.
The NBA statement is, quote, Warner Brothers Discovery's most recent proposal did not match the terms of the Amazon Prime offer, and therefore we have entered into a long-term arrangement with Amazon. Whereas TNT Sports is saying, Warner Brothers Discovery is saying that, well, we might have to sue you because we don't agree with that. We agree. We think that the terminology in the contract allows us to match it.
Yeah, it's going to get ugly, I would imagine. Warner Brothers is going to sue them.
Which is going to be nuts, because now you're going to have inside the NBA every week for their final season while lawyers are jousting.
Charles Barkley's going to be a joy to watch this.
He is going to be unfiltered more than ever before. He is going to be, Barkley unhinged.
Yeah, I mean, he knows this is it for him, so that'll be fun. Listen, if they really didn't have a package to go after because the ESPN ABC has network television ABC.
Right.
NBC has network television NBC. Prime is a stream service. Cable television TNT is on the outs. TNT, which is a cable channel, is having big-time problems.
By the way, NBC has officially announced Round Ball Rock is back.
Coming back.
It's back officially. Will they hire Bob Costas and Hannah Storm for like one day?
It'll be interesting to see who they decide to bring in to be the play-by-player, because keep this in mind, TNT, it's Kevin Harlan, yep. Brian Anderson, Reggie Miller, Stan Van Gundy, Ian Eagle, that whole crew. Are they going to go to NBC, some of those guys? Because I doubt Kevin Harlan, because he does CBS for football.
Correct.
He also does the NCAA tournament. Ian Eagle is the voice of the NCAA tournament now, so they might be out.
Does Mike Tirico start calling basketball games?
Maybe, or does he go into the Bob Costas role?
The studio game,
yeah.
Maybe.
Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. We'll wrap up the show on the other side. Phillies lose today, 5-4, by the way. They've lost 3 straight series.
It's the Mike Gill.
And I am the voice of the voiceless.
On 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
All right, get ready to get out of here. Before we do, don't forget, Friday, we're going to be live at Giuliano's over in EHT. 2 to 6, shows live. Happy Hour Friday. We're taking the Happy Hour Friday on the road. Might be the first time out for the Happy Hour Friday show. You're invited. Everybody out there, please stop out. Let us know how long you've been listening. 15 years of the Sports Bash. We're celebrating all summer long. We're starting at Giuliano's this Friday. We have another stop next Friday, and now we have a third location for August the 23rd. So we'll give you details on those locations, and it's all thanks to Bud Light. We'll have Bud Light specials, $3.50 drafts, $4 neutral vodka seltzers on Friday, and we'll see you out there at Giuliano's in Egg Harbor Township. Phillies game that night. They're playing the Guardians, so Friday night, stop out, see the show, and we're giving away every hour on the Sports Bash, right? Smashing Pumpkins Green Day tickets for Citizens Bank Park, August 9th. Every hour, Citizens Bank Park. There also could be other great prizes that you're going to want to get out there for. I can't give you all the details on that just yet, but you're going to want to be there. It could be something that helps you in the future. In the future. All right? That's it for me. Josh has game night up next. And I'm Mike Gill. This has been the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Have a great rest of your Wednesday. We'll talk to you tomorrow here on the Sports Bash. Don't forget, download the free mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle. Have a great night, everybody.
Save on O'Reilly Brake Parts Cleaner. Get 2 cans of O'Reilly Brake Parts Cleaner for just $8. Valid in-store only at O'Reilly Auto Parts.
O'Reilly.